Yesterday, I got the best text of my life, which was my uncle telling me that he is doing an in-depth presentation on the history of pubs in the town that I grew up in. And
Hell yeah.
Today, he sent me the presentation, and it's maybe the most wholesome thing I've ever seen, because he goes through and he literally lists all the pubs. And there's at one point where he goes through the price of a pint of beer over the ages, and he's done all of the conversions, and then he's found all of these old pictures, and he's put in pictures of himself when he was a teen, with all these friends at these pubs, and then he's just basically gone around and found all these old pictures of all the pubs in this town. And I'm not even kidding, everything's shit at the moment. I had a smile on my face the whole time when I was reading his presentation, because it's also not something that he does.
Did he make it in Windows Movie Maker? Does it have the overlay on it and stuff? Yeah.
It has Star Wars wipes. No.
The swipes and stuff. Yeah.
No, but he did make a presentation.
That is very nice.
So wholesome.
That is, I love that. That's
Ralph.
That's
if you were to make
if
you were to make a presentation that wasn't gaming related, what would it be about?
Oh, I love those presentation PowerPoint parties.
Oh wow, yeah. I think because I'm so tennis pilled right now, it would be about tennis.
What would it be about? Anna Kournikova?
It would be about trying to no, probably Roger Federer, but trying to explain to people. I actually found myself in a meeting with someone the other day where I was trying to recruit them, really aggressively.
Yeah, you
as
come
well.
at me too.
I wouldn't take no for an answer. I'm listen, man, I want you to say yes to this. You know what I mean? So I do feel as though that would be what would happen if I ever had a PowerPoint deck in an audience. So
mine would be Great British Bake Off, showstoppers, and how likely I think it is that I could make them. It's that fake. It's the fake confidence. Because I made one of them. I don't think.
Can you actually bake?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Confidently.
But I want to learn,
quick.
and I'm delusional.
I want to learn. I'm going to rank this on how likely it is I could make it.
Yes.
I can't bake.
No, I'm the
I want to learn.
The Homer Simpson
Feels like that would be a short
cereal milk
presentation.
fire.
Okay, right.
The will to learn is powerful.
Sure.
Well, this is Friends Per Second. Welcome if you're new here. This is a podcast where we gather every other week to talk about video game stuff. It is episode 59. We made it. That's right. I think every time I host, I say that.
We made it.
We got a lot of stuff this week. We are talking about Stalker 2, and we're talking with the person who reviewed it for IGN, Michael Higham. Great conversation. We're also talking, or Ralph rather, is talking to some of the Ubisoft folks behind Star Wars Outlaws after the
Frederick
big update
Thylander.
Change up over there.
Yeah, Frederick Thylander and Drew Rechner. They are heading up the transformation of Outlaws post-launch. So we've got a cheeky 20 minutes with them coming up.
Yeah, I'm
And
curious
also,
to see that.
You're recording on Thanksgiving, so that's why me and Jake on there. Because they're
Europeans
European.
and I'm Australian, so we don't give a shit. Well, actually, Drew is. Oh, he might be a Canadian. I'm not sure if he's American.
They
or
had their
Canadian.
Thanksgiving. That was two.
Who's that?
Canadians.
They have They have Thanksgiving too.
Wait,
Wait,
I
what?
didn't know this.
Yeah, it was
No way.
2-3 weeks ago, I think. Yeah.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't know. Are you sure about this? Are you
I'm
making this up?
Googling.
All right.
No,
all right.
Canadian
There's a
Thanksgiving.
bunch of 1,000 Canadians are screaming right now.
Thanksgiving Day, it was, it's the second Monday of October.
Is it celebrating the same? Are they giving thanks for the same thing? Isn't it like giving food to the pilgrims or some shit? Isn't that like? Isn't like I don't know anything about Thanksgiving except turkey, and that's it. That's all I know.
Giving food to the pilgrims. They didn't need
I don't
food.
fucking know,
Oh,
man.
that's great.
I don't know shit about Thanksgiving.
They the big bluey float for the Macy's Day Parade.
He passed
deflated.
away.
Yeah.
Yeah, he passed away. What happened?
I don't know. It just deflated.
So the floats,
Oh, no.
the big floats, can get stuck on street lights or street signs or fire escapes and just instantly.
Bluey's down.
That's so sad. All the kids would be crying. It'd be
that's
terrible.
Is Snoopy okay?
He's fine. He's
good.
been alive for a million years. Alive.
Yeah.
But I'm a big
alive.
parade watcher, so I'm super into who shows up, who doesn't show up. I'll watch it. I'll be like, oh, this guy's here.
Oh, this guy's back
They
again.
brought Pikachu back. Are you kidding me? Come on. Yeah. So happy Thanksgiving, people who celebrate. Anyway, let's just jump into our first topic. This is, like I said, with Michael from IGN, talking about the hotly debated Stalker 2. Michael, what's it like reviewing a game like Stalker? It seems terrifying. Like you're going in totally cold turkey, a scary world.
It's you gotta love the miserable experience of reviewing a game. No, I love reviewing games. Stalker is interesting because of, well, many reasons why the review period was so difficult, and we'll get into bugs and when we got patches throughout the review period. But it is a very challenging game, and when you have very little guidance in the game and there are no guides published because you are playing a pre-release version, you have to figure things out for yourself. So it's almost like the purest way to play the game, and I do enjoy that because I wouldn't have looked up a guide anyway. I'm a huge Stalker fan from way back in the day, but when I got this in my hands, I'm like, oh shit, I gotta figure this out. This is real. I don't know if I could finish this game in time, but also I don't know if I could even finish this game because of how difficult it might be. And maybe I'll run into some game-breaking bugs, which I did. But overall, the review experience was interesting. I feel like I've grown because of it. But I got through it. I'm very happy with the end product of my Stalker 2 Heart of Chernobyl review on hit video game website IGN.com.
Yeah, we're happy to have you.
Haven't heard of that one.
It's a good-ass review.
Thanks.
Yeah, it's certainly a game, and the experience is probably the first thing we should probably talk about up front. It came in very hot. The review code. It was Ralph's already shaking his head. You kind of like noped out. I didn't watch your whole video yet, but
yeah, but like I had to, man. It was just too fucked. Like, I mean, because I'm not sure, because every reviewer played at a different pace, but like I really smashed it out really early on before any of the like patches had rolled through or whatever else. And I think I got like one patch that was during my review cycle, but it didn't seem to change anything for me materially. But it was just fucked, unfortunately. Like, it was definitely one of the most broken games I have reviewed at launch, or pre-launch, I should say. You know, I mean, obviously performance was just really, really shitty across the board, and that's running on like the top end hardware, CPU and GPU. You know, just the number of sort of quest affecting bugs was just too numerous, and they were too intrusive.
That'll slow you down.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I think the biggest thing for me actually was the stealth just being completely busted. And I think that's still busted to today. Like, I don't think that's actually been fixed. As in, enemies can just straight up see you through walls. You know, like animation, like takedown animations don't work consistently. Vision cones are totally fucked. Like, the whole stealth framework just straight up doesn't work. There was also, and I didn't even realize this, because I just kind of took it as, I only played very small bits of the original Stalker game, right? Like couple of, like half an hour tops before I was like, this is too old for me at this point. Like,
so you only had that shitty pistol, and you're like, that's it. Yeah, that's
totally right. And like, I wasn't like, all right, I wasn't in the mindset where I'm going to saddle up for this kind of thing, right? So Stalker was very new to me. And the sort of spawning system that I experienced, I thought this was just how Stalker handles spawning enemies, where they just like spawn in randomly. And I'm like, okay, fair enough. Turns out that's not how it works. And it's like this whole thing where Stalker has a really deliberate approach to the way it spawns in enemies. And that's just not at all working at all right now. The developers have acknowledged the issue as well. But yeah, I definitely found that a challenge as well, where, you know, enemies would just kind of appear off in the distance and start shooting at you, and you're like, okay. So yeah, there was just so many things that piled up that made me go, okay, I can sense there's a good game here for sure, and I really want to be able to experience that in the right context when it's enjoyable, you know. But the number of issues that I was experiencing, I was just like, I got to put this down for now and come back when it's in better state.
It's interesting, the different like experience, because I binged a ton of the game closer to when the game launched,
right?
And then and I'm still playing it now, and my experience has been pretty good. It's definitely still messy. It's still something I recommend, like if people are sensitive to that stuff, they hold off. But I've been having fun with it. I like it. It's also like kind of what I expected, I guess, as somebody who does know the original game. I kind of knew what kind of mess, to a point, what I was getting myself into, at least in terms of like the challenge, right? And all that. I'm glad that the developers have talked about updating the AI stuff specifically, because that has been rough, because I'm good with a game that has no guardrails or handholds or anything with encounters and stuff. But when the rules can kind of be finicky because of poor AI or glitches, that's another problem. But what I do really like are those shootouts. When you're in a good shootout, man, like it's when you're sweaty, it's it's good, man. And that's what I was hoping the game would have. And I don't know about you guys, but like for me, it's like the I don't know the word, but like that feeling you get when you finally get a gun that is actually good and capable. And then all of a sudden you start doing all right. You're getting around, you're actually surviving. And then that hooks you to keep going more and more and more. And I like that organic way of progressing and slowly feeling a little bit more, not powerful, but well equipped in terms of progression, where it's not like you're leveling up, you're increasing your health stats or anything. It's all just about discovering the world and figuring out what pile of leaves or what puddle is going to kill the shit out of you, and how equipment works and how you should approach stuff, and when not to save scum like a shit ton, because I totally
always save scum.
There's no rules. You can save scum if you want.
So Luce, you played it as well.
Some
but
of it.
You just weren't vibing it on any level?
No, not at all. My first ever Stalker game, no real... I don't really think I know anything about the other ones. No one really was playing that much Stalker, like to the point where I was interested, like to talk about it enough that I was interested in trying it out myself. So I was like, okay, I'll jump in on this one. I have no fondness for the kind of jank in that game. I also think it makes a terrible first impression.
Really bad.
That opening is really bad. And I got very frustrated with it. So I put it down for a bit, came back, and I was just struggling to find the fun. It can definitely be fun if that's what you want, in terms of like, I want to be in these tense situations. I want to be scavenging. I want every fight to feel like it might be my last. But when I was playing, it was just so riddled with bugs. Like the reason I stopped playing it completely is because I got caught in such a bad bug that could potentially be the game breaking. I need to like run a few tests, but basically I would get into this situation. I have to talk to this NPC. He attacks me because I don't have enough money to pay him for information. So he attacks me. However, the game will not let me use my weapons. So even though I'm pulling up my inventory and whatever, like pulling up the weapon wheel to put my weapons in, he's just standing there not doing anything. And I'm surrounded by 4 or 5 guys who just all shoot me immediately. And that happened like 4 times in a row. And I just went, nope.
Damn.
Okay. No.
You hate to see it.
I could go away and leave, but this was a main quest that I had to do. And I was just like, it had also auto-saved me like just as I was talking to them.
Yeah, I got some of those as well. Those bad autosaves, I got some of them for sure. For sure.
There's stuff like that. Story's not really, engaging enough for me.
Does it get better at the back end? Because I stopped at I think it's about the 3/4 mark. Does it deliver at the back end for those of you? Michael, you finished it.
Yeah, I finished it.
Jake, you haven't yet. Yeah. Would you say it delivered?
It delivers in the sense that I was invested in it because of how it loops in the rest of the Stalker games. Okay. It kind of hits similar themes from the rest of the Stalker games, but it's more like you have Shadow Chernobyl, you have Clear Sky, you have Call of Pripyat, and they all kind of like branch off in their own different directions with different characters. But I feel like with Heart of Chernobyl, they kind of rope all of that into its own main story by the end of it. And it's not really a spoiler. That's just like the natural progression of what happens in the zone over time. That's just like the lore of that place. But I was invested at a certain point, I think around the halfway point, once you start to see what the story is really about and you start to get into the more psychological elements of the game. That's was like, oh, we're cooking now. They're like, this is the good shit. And I think part of it is because I have that attachment to the old Stalker games, and to see that like fully realized with higher production values was like, oh my God, this is kind of what I wanted Stalker always wanted it to be. Not just this brutal, janky FPS that had a lot of great ideas, but now they are also weaving in like some higher production values, and to see all of that stuff kind of come together, it was like, oh, I'm actually invested in who I align with. And the dialogue, cutscenes that I have where I have to make certain decisions about who I am going to side with, who I'm going to show information, who I'm going to hide information from, and how that is going to affect my objectives. Of course, it all has to kind of lead to the same destination because that's just, that's just how games are built. But it felt like my path to get there was as interesting as the story itself was. So like the story isn't going to be on a level of like an Atlas RPG or whatever, or any other RPG, I guess.
You would say Atlas RPG first.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying? Metaphor game of the year, you know what I'm saying? But it's more like the story is intriguing, and it is roping in the interesting pieces of the zone and of like the supernatural elements that the old games introduced, along with the kind of how people around the zone come to terms with like the nuclear fallout in the zone and how they make their lives make their living there. All that stuff is like very fascinating to me, even though it doesn't do this in-depth exploration of it. So by the time I kind of like saw through the cracks, it does like a very original Deus Ex thing, or like, here's the Dark Age path, here's the one humanity path, and here's like the one where you become like it does like the very distinct decision that you can make at the very end.
Right.
But my path to get there was the more interesting part, I think. So like I'm not gonna tell people like, yo, the story is crazy, you gotta like play it for the narrative, whatever. But I think in tandem with the gameplay experience that I enjoy, to have that also as a value added, it all kind of like, oh shit, my bad, I hit my mic. It all kind of worked together to be like, all these parts are very good, and the way they all are tied in together kind of makes it for like an experience that felt complete in a way that the other Stalker games didn't, where I'm just here for the brutal gameplay and the unforgiving nature of living in the Stalker world. And they had some interesting things in those old games, but Stalker 2 felt like, okay, now we're like bringing that all together to kind of the same level. If the game worked for you, it worked for me, thankfully. So yeah.
What did you play on PC?
I played on PC. Yeah. Okay. And I don't know if I want to get into it now, but I did have it's funny because in my review period, I did a review in progress for Embargo. Because the SEO gods demand it, right? But it's funny because in my review in progress, I'm like, hey, I ran into a game-breaking bug and I lost a day. Like, I couldn't progress for a day in the game. And I emailed GSE Game World. I was like, hey, like, I don't know what to do. I'm stuck. This quest doesn't progress. And like, it's literally glitched. I tried a bunch of things. And they're like, hey, try to do this other thing, and maybe it'll initiate the quest objective that you're at. But that required me to go to an autosave from 4 hours prior, make a different story decision, go along a different path, which was kind of interesting. That like, oh, okay, I made a different decision.
See more stuff.
Yeah, but like the fact that I had to do that kind of rubbed me the wrong way. So I was like, fuck it, I'm gonna do a review in progress, and then I got the day one patch, and then I played basically half the game with the day one patch for my review period. So I know other reviewers kind of like, they just did their thing for the review period, and like, hey, I have to hit embargo, I'm gonna do it. And I like, that's just kind of the nature of doing reviews. Like, that's just what you have to do in this business. So I guess I'm kind of thankful that I ran into a game-breaking bug pre-release, because I started to poke and prod at the game a little bit more. Like, oh, I experienced this problem, let me see if it was fixed. And more often than not, I was like, oh, the day one patch actually fixed these things that I saw in the pre-release version. And I'm just like, damn, like, it's unfortunate that the day one patch had come literally less than a day before the embargo had to hit. And so I'm like, shit, well, what are you going to do, right? But then I got to play half the game with that day one patch, and I think it solved most of the problems that I had. I didn't get any more glitched quest objectives. I went back to the old quest that was glitching out for me, and I'm like, okay, well, they solved it this time, or like they already solved it with this patch, so I guess like I can't hold it against them. And so, even broadly speaking, I think Stalker 2 is such an interesting case study for how games get reviewed. And the tricky nature of how to do it, and who, like, I don't feel like there's any wrong way to go about it, right? It's just how the business works, I guess.
I think too, even there's like a question, right, about like tolerance for bullshit, and whether it's a reviewer or if you just like bought the game or you downloaded the game or whatever. I feel like this game more than a lot made me realize that every game is a case-by-case basis with broken stuff you as a player put up with, whether it's performance stuff, game-breaking stuff, like how much do you try and push through that? And for me with this game, I pushed through a lot because I just genuinely was enjoying it. And I think I was really just enjoying walking around. Like once you get out of the lesser zone and like things get, then it's like, oh, okay. Hell yeah. This is sick as hell. Do you guys agree though? I think like we touched on it. The intro, I said on social media, I think the intro is kind of the litmus test for whether or not you're going to be like, all right, let me keep trying this. Or you're like, nah, this game isn't for me.
So I think that was it for me. Because when I was playing through that intro and I'd already had
it's the bloodsucker. It's that first bloodsucker, that fucking asshole.
Sucks, man.
I think the bit that really got me was the throwing the nuts and bolts at the invisible wall stuff.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
I was just sort of open-mouthed and I was just playing it and I was like, what the fuck is this? And also the way the tutorialization in that game is also not great. And every time something comes up, it just goes, it zooms at the screen at you and then zooms away for some reason. And every time something comes up, and especially when I was getting attacked by that guy, that invisible, whatever that guy is, and like these weird tutorials. Oh my God.
Lucy, change the battery pack.
Well, I can't because I'm wired in.
Oh no.
I've never seen that before.
Let me see if I can fix that. But yeah, no, that tutorial was just so annoying for me. And I was just like, if this is going to be how the rest of it is. And unfortunately, I just wasn't.
Yeah, I think that I think this is the thing, I definitely sense that there's a really great game underneath the surface of this. And obviously people definitely appreciate it for what it is right now, 100%, right? Yes. In particular, I think the anomalies in the zone are a really interesting thing to encounter because you're like, what the fuck is this? Oh, it kills me like everything else does. How does it kill me? How do I avoid that in future? And that learning process of sort of figuring that stuff out, dying to it, learning what it does, and then knowing what to do in future is very satisfying. Like I really love that gameplay loop in any game because it's kind of like a Metroidvania of the mind thing where like I don't necessarily become more powerful. Like I can't stand in electricity because I get some electricity upgrade. Well, I could get those anomaly things, sure, but like ultimately you understand my point, right?
You didn't increase your health points for it or something.
You're learning the zone, you're learning how to survive it, and I think that's really compelling. But I think most of its other gameplay elements are pretty weak right now with a lot more potential to be much better in the future. Like for example, like the shooting and the combat versus human enemies, right? It feels really good when it works, generally speaking. But even then, like the health economy in the game doesn't quite work. So even in the most tense shootouts, I have like 30 first aid kits and I'm just like spamming them, right? Was I the only one like this?
No, I was genuinely surprised.
You got to do that, right?
I was surprised how many health packs there were. I thought this was going to be so much more punishing.
Absolutely. And I feel like if you were to rebalance enemy damage versus the availability of health packs, and you really had to fight hard to survive in those encounters, and there wasn't so much chip damage coming at you that you just kind of had to relentlessly heal through, and you could actually avoid fire more intelligently. Like if you tightened up all of the elements of that system, the overall combat system versus human enemies, that would be fucking sick. But right now, it's pretty cool overall, but a lot of the time, I'm shooting a gun into a really dark fucking room that I can't see anything. And they don't even have any fucking muzzle flash or anything going on. I'm just shooting. And then they're shooting back at me. And I'm just doing this every little while until I kill them all. And then they all have health packs on them. So I basically refill all the health packs that I just got. Do you know what I mean? So I think that is one example. And obviously I've talked about the stealth stuff, which I think is just totally not working at this point. And again, correct me if I'm wrong if that has been fixed, but it wasn't working for me at all. I think even the mutant enemies, I think the mutant enemies suck. Fighting those rat things. Did you guys fight those fucking rats and have, they're so annoying. They're impossible to shoot. I hate them so much. And there's so many of them. So, I think in general that the survival systems across the board are pretty underbaked. Like food. It's like just eat everything you find, right? And I couldn't necessarily get sick by doing that. Can you get sick by overeating in this game? I don't think you can, because I just ate everything, and that's it.
I was
so that kind
the
of
glizzy god. I was down in sausages all day, dude.
absolutely, right? So again, if you like rebalance that system, health is more like food is more scarce. Eat too much and you get sick. It has more of an impact. Yada yada. Like, you know, all of that stuff I think combined, just to me, I can really sense how, with a few balance patches, or quite a few balance patches, I'd say, you could get to a really great feeling game. But I just think too many of those core elements were not quite there for me. The zone was really alluring, but any of the game systems within the zone, I think, just weren't quite. I wasn't loving them in their current form. I don't know how you guys feel about that.
Okay.
Yeah. I also found like I just didn't want to talk to anyone.
Sure.
Because the first and again, you know, this is me coming at it as someone who is completely new to this franchise. My first impression of it didn't grab me, and I just don't think really I'm in the mood right now. Like, I'm so busy. I've got a bunch of stuff going on. I'm just like, I don't
being
have
in the
that.
mood is something you just hit on. Something being in the mood for something is something with this game. Like it's that type of game. 100%.
100%. I was just like, I'm just not in the mood for this. And the first time you get to the town, there are all these guys, and you have to go to the bar. And I tried to talk to every single one, and they all just said, talk to the boss. Some of them just said the exact same line, and there was like 5 of them, and they just said, talk to the boss. Talk to the boss.
That's called discipline, Lucy.
I was like, you should go talk to the boss. But I was like, okay, so there's nothing. You're giving me nothing, guys. This is, you know, you're giving me nothing. And then I get there, and I just think, I was just like, okay, go find this guy, then that guy, and then go over here.
Yeah,
and I was
very much that.
And I was like, you know, and then wasn't vibing with it.
Yeah.
And I just wasn't in the mood for it.
Yeah. That makes sense. I can totally feel that.
I said in my review, like, the first like 5 to 10 hours of this game is just finding guys. Like, you go to one guy, he's like, oh, go
military
find
guy with the buzz cut.
this other guy. It's like,
Tinder.
okay, find that guy. It's like, oh, you looking for that guy? You got to talk to this guy before you find that guy.
Yeah,
and I was just, in my review in progress, I'm like, this story has devolved into just finding guys. Like, there's a bunch of cool shit in between, but I'm just here finding guys. I don't know why they introduce you to like, oh, I have this scanner, and then it gets stolen by like a rogue group of stalkers, and oh my god, I need to track down the scanner again. But then the next 10 hours, like, I need to talk to Homeboy, and it's like, well, Homeboy's over there on that map, and I'm like, okay, cool, I'll go there, and then
fucking Homeboy.
Yeah, and then so my review in progress is like, I don't know if there's a focus here. And it's really hard for me to be like, but wait, once you get to the 15 to 20 hour mark, then it starts getting good, because I've done that shit for so long with a lot of the RPGs that I love.
Oh, JRPGs, definitely. Straight up.
But there's still at least like a hook. You can kind of see the seeds of something great in the beginning of those games, even if they're off to a slow start. Stalker is like, they kind of like don't really give you anything unless you are really into the gameplay systems and the atmosphere of the zone. They don't really give you anything to really cling on. And I say this to a lot of people when I talk about this game, is like, this is my favorite game that I would not recommend to anybody. Because you have to really work hard to get to the point when it starts to show you what it's really about. And I'm not going to ask that of people unless they are really into this kind of game. And most people aren't. And so, I recognize when people fall off of it, I'm like, hey, there's a million other things you can do with your time other than powering through Stalker 2. And if you get there, you might not even, maybe you don't even vibe with the direction it's going. So it is very much a vibes-based game. You have to be in the right mood. You have to have a certain, like, I think Jake mentioned this, there's a certain tolerance you have to have for some of the bullshit in there. And like, you know, as a reviewer, it's hard to like gauge like, oh, well, if you can tolerate this bullshit, then it's fine, right? Like, I never want to like say that to somebody, because then it's hard to gauge what, like, of the million people who ever are going to read or watch the review or whatever, there's like, well, I don't really understand how that would apply to me. So I can only speak from my experience, where I'm like, I put up with the bullshit and I loved it. So,
and then you have Stalker fans in comments that are like, "Oh, the glitches are just anomalies. It's fine. Don't worry about it."
Yeah, here, man. You should. I mean, like, the glitch stuff is like the bugginess of this game is another very tricky part to talk about, because of the conditions in which this game is made. And how do you factor that into a review? And you
Absolutely.
kind of can't,
Yeah.
but you also kind of have to mention it. And so
Yeah,
For sure.
you have
That's
to review
interesting.
the product
But I think
as
the
it
context
stands
really,
and-
but the context really matters. Like, as in, you know, if this was like, you know, like fucking Jedi Fallen Order, like Jedi Survivor comes out, and it's just absolute dog shit port, like the worst PC port seen in a long fucking time. It's like, what's the excuse for this, guys? It's like, you're EA, you Respawn, like you just have all the money in the world, like it's just no, you know. And so I think you can bring a level of righteous indignation to that sort of shit and be like, come on, man, this is fucked. But obviously, I mean, like, these guys are making this game, you know, in a war zone. Some of them are still in Kyiv, you know, many of them are obviously also in Prague. And it's like, well, okay, of course we understand why this is buggy. Fair enough, you know, like we'll come back to it when it's ready, you know. And I think that on the whole, people have really recognized that and they're okay with that, you know. I've seen some people like really angry, like, this is unacceptable. And it's like, okay, relax. It's, you know, let's look at the big picture here, you know. Yeah. But I think to your point, like as reviewers, yeah, it is really tricky, because obviously we have to be conscious of that, like that context. Yeah. But also, I think I just don't ever, so often in my review career, the developer will promise a day one patch, and they're like, guys, the day one patch is coming. Don't worry, all these things that you are worried about, we're gonna fix them in the day one patch. And I have been doing this. I've been doing this long enough to just know that is fucking bullshit 98% of the time. Like, the day one patch will fix some things, but it's not going to fix everything, right? And I think from what I can tell, listening to people talk about Stalker, this was actually one of the better, more impactful day one patches, where if you did play the game afterwards, you got a significantly better experience. But as reviewers, like, we can't just go on the trust me bro thing and be like, well, so they say it's much better day one, so no, you know what I mean? So I think we have to review the game that's in front of us, and and I, you know, that's ultimately all that we can do, unless you do want to, you know, play also after that day one patch. But at the same time, there's other things we have to move on to, and again, I am just so naturally untrusting of the promise of a day one patch these days that I kind of just file on my mind, okay, well, this is the game that you've given me, so that's what I'm going to play right now. Do you know what I'm saying?
That's just kind of what you have to do. Like, you can't factor in something you don't have firsthand experience with in a review. Like, that's just that kind of goes against the idea of being a reviewer, right? So a lot of folks who like straight up just reviewed whatever version they had at the moment, that was their experience. That's as valid as any other review. So like there's not to get into like the weeds of the business, but there's this back and forth, this kind of trust you have with the publisher as the reviewer. It's like, okay, you're giving me this for review, so it's fair game that I'm going to talk about my experience with the thing you have given me. You can promise this day one patch, but that cannot that's if I don't have that in front of me, I literally cannot factor that into my review. And so and
I think as well, I reflect on how GSC must feel about how the timing of it, because if they did have this day one patch out just a little bit earlier, you're probably looking at a different Metacritic score. Like, it's still got, I think, a 77 on Metacritic, which is, you know, it's a decent result, of course, but this feels like a 9 out of 10 game that's just held back by a bunch of these very, very severe technical issues, and I think some balance issues that will get worked out in the longer term, right? So you got to imagine that GSC are feeling bummed about that, because had this day one patch come out, this probably would have been like an 84, 85 on Metacritic, you know what I mean? And that is a different narrative around that game at that point, when we're not so fixated on the technical issues and all that sort of shit. Like, that would have been a great victory lap for them. It'd be like, fuck yeah, man, we did it, and that would have been super cool. But that day's still a little in the offing, I think.
Either way, it still needs things to be fixed, even after that. And I think absolutely, at the very least, like, they would want that feedback. So I'm glad that we've given it, and now players are giving it. The one thing I wanted to ask you, Mike, is someone who seems like you've played the most Stalker series wide out of all of us, is the Foundation. Because like these games are always foundation for things, whether it's, you know, an expansion or like player mod stuff. Like me playing it, like I'm like, okay, like there are issues and some people might not like this, but I think this is good groundwork for the future. Do you feel the same way? Like how are you on that?
Yeah, I think there's a strong foundation here that I love what is already there, but I can also imagine that this is a good base, because things like the zone itself as an open world is one of my favorite open worlds in recent memory. I've been replaying Red Dead Redemption 2. And I think like the walking from objective to objective between the different regions in the zone really remind me of horseback riding in Red Dead 2, where you're not really doing anything, but on the way there, you see a bunch of shit happen. You kind of you look out to the open world, and it's this kind of therapeutic experience where, I might have like a 2-kilometer hike to my next objective or to the next town I need to get to, but along the way, storms are happening, it's raining, and the world looks beautiful but oddly unsettling. That the way in which the zone itself has been realized in modern technology it's so fascinating to me. And that is probably my favorite thing about Stalker 2, is that atmosphere that is like, that's not something you fix after the fact. That's something that has to be there from the foundation. And I think that is like one of the best things about it, is that this is a very, very enticing open world that I loved being in, despite all the anomalies that are scattered about and the mutants who can pull up on you at any moment. Just that feeling of, I'm a stalker and I'm walking my ass to the next town, hoping that I can sell all the shit that is in my backpack. Just that feeling of like, not many games like provide this kind of friction. And that's also why I say like, it's not going to be for everyone, but at least I was in the mood for that sort of thing. That is something that I think is going to carry on, like when there is mods, if there are expansions, and when there come patch fixes, like that is already in place for everything else to be built on top of it. So there's that. And I think the idea of, some people have trouble with the encumbrance, and I get it. But I found that to be like the kind of friction that I was like happy to work with, where I'm not going to take all my bullets. I'm not going to take all my med kits. I'm going to take like maybe 15 med kits, 15 bandages, so I can have the 2 guns that I want and enough ammo so I can be like, I can still sprint for a long time. Like that kind of the balancing between what's in your backpack, what you anticipate to be loot in the zone. I think Ralph, you mentioned there could be like a lot of balance improvements there, and I do agree with that. But as it stands, I think that the idea of having this push and pull of what do I bring, what do I leave?
Totally agree. And I actually had a lot of challenges with the encumbrance, and in my review, I talked about it, and I used some bad footage, because I used some footage of my bags being like totally full. And that's not how I played this game, obviously. Like that moment of footage that I showed was a bad example, right? But on the whole, I was having to work within the constraints of encumbrance, trying to like take as little as I could and whatever else. I just felt it was not balanced quite correctly. And it was just like, come on, man, give me a little bit more here. You know what I mean? Because I was like, if I picked up 2 cool guns that I found when I'm out in the thing, then I'm fucking encumbered. I have to haul that stupid tracker machine thing that's like 12 kilograms. And I'm like, I've already found a cool gun, and now I've got to go somewhere else. There's no trip back to town. There's no fast travel. You just want me to walk for 5 kilometers through a swamp encumbered.
That's Stalker, baby.
Do you know what I mean? I know that's like, and I'm like, all right, that's cool. If you like, you really like the idea of being forced to walk more slowly than not because you found a cool gun. Like, I get it. I'm not at all like, I'm not ignoring what that is, for sure. I'm just saying that for me, it was just a little bit too much, such that it kind of just sucked the fun out of too many moments in the game. And that's another example, that encumbrance system. If you just like turn the screws on that a little bit, I think there's a lot of benefit. Like in that.
There's a version of it that's still true to the idea.
Absolutely agree.
Yeah. I do agree with that. Like I was perfectly happy with the way it works as is. And I know that it's not going to be the most fun experience. So I was like, I went into this being like looking at a lot of the systems that, like these systems are kind of borked, but these other systems, maybe they're not like they're definitely providing a lot of friction, but let me figure out how to work within the confines of how this system is built. And so I was able to find like a really nice flow of knowing what to, or especially towards the end of the game, because like there are some very intense moments where you have to like dump a lot of ammo into these enemies, and it gets to a point where like, hey, I'm packing light to make sure I could still sprint, But I get to the point where I'm still deep in this quest objective and I'm running out of things, and I have to be like a scavenger at that point. And like I'm not gonna say like, oh, that's brilliant game design, right? Like, because I can't tell whether or not that's intentional. If it's intentional, cool. If it's not, then I just don't know. But the fact that I'm like, oh my god, now I'm looking at sausages as like my healing items rather than to keep my hunger down, and I'm picking up ammo for guns I don't have, and now I'm like, well, I'm going to be a little bit I'm going to be in the yellow for the over encumbrance because I still want to keep my main guns, but I'm running low on ammo. So I'm going to pick up your gun and pick up the ammo there because I need something for backup. So this idea of like, I got into some shit and I was not prepared enough for it, but I'm too deep in it to turn back now. Like,
it's survival horror. It's the inventory scarcity designed to make you feel desperate.
Yeah,
but that's cool. And so the thing is, I played the game for 25 hours and I never once encountered that kind of tension because I don't think the scenarios were really set up to really create that for me. Like, I just had so much ammo, so many health kits. Do you know what I mean? Like, it just, I never once, and I wasn't making regular trips back to town to whatever else. I don't know. Like, I just never encountered. I could feel that this is the kind of game where I should be encountering that exact feeling regularly.
Yeah.
But I just wasn't. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think, and if you're saying to me that happens in the late game, then that is exciting, and I look forward to that for sure.
But yeah, it's just such an interesting game where so many people have so many different experiences with it, and which again, like I said, like they're all valid because they played the game, they experienced what it is, and they did it themselves, and some people are gonna go through, they're gonna see different things, they're gonna experience it a different way, and that's all valid. So but yeah, it's one of the most fascinating review cycles, I think, for a game, just because of how divisive it is and how different bugs and different things have like affected people in different ways. So I'm like reading all these different reviews, watching all these different reviews. I was watching your review, Ralph, and I'm like, damn, you hate to see it, but you know what? That happens. Like, someone's going to experience that game the way you did as well. And it's a really fascinating game.
I think that's a positive way to end it. And I do think it's one that we're going to be talking about for a while. I think the game's going to have juice for a long time. Definitely.
For sure.
Mike, thank you for joining us.
Of course.
We love having you on here. You're the best. Where can people find you?
You can find me and all of my bullshit at Blue Sky. BrazyAsian.
You're over on Blue Sky now?
Social.
Yeah.
Hell yeah, man.
Oh, I made the full transition, baby. It's the best
dude.
shit.
It's so
nice.
much like, it's like Threads is fucking garbage, man.
Yeah.
We tried, but I feel like even now, just people have decided, okay, that's it. Now you post up anything on Threads, no one responds. Everyone's just left the building, man. It's wild.
I saw someone today say that they tweaked the algorithm again because it was just it was all just people who had no idea who they were. And then I saw people today like, oh, thanks, Threads, you've changed something, and I was like, have you?
Yeah, Blue Sky has been really good. I've been super impressed by it the last 2 weeks. Like, just having a really good time over there. So yeah. All right, man.
I'm chilling out
glad
there.
you're over there.
So hit me up.
Cool. I'm more of an IGN comments guy, so I'll be in the comments of your next
let's
review.
go, baby.
I'm gonna be in your next review being like, I don't like it.
Please do.
Thanks, man. See you.
Right. Peace.
Do you guys have people in your life who you really struggle to buy presents for?
Oh yes.
Everyone.
Everyone.
Every single person.
I'm bad at giving gifts because I'm constantly thinking about myself and what I'm gonna buy for me.
No, because like I have people in my family who I'm just like, I don't want to get you a gift voucher again. Let me get you something good.
Sure.
And
agree.
so
I'm
like
philosophically very anti-gift voucher, by the way. I'm very anti it. I think it's like just giving someone a stack of cash, like that Seinfeld episode. Like, what am I, your uncle? You know, like, no, I'm really against it.
No. But it is the holidays, and so obviously gift giving is on the kind of coming up in everyone's mind. And it's, I've been making my list. I've been checking them twice to see what I'm going to get everyone. And I want to get people something that is practical, something that they can actually use every day. And so, hey, you know what's a perfect fit? Raycon. Everyday
That's
earbuds.
right. The Raycon everyday earbuds. It's funny you mention that because I've brought it up before where I've talked about Raycon elsewhere. I got a pair for my dad 2 years ago now, I think at this point. And he still doesn't stop talking about them. He's like, these are great. How much do these cost? That's it? These are great. I use these all the time. And it works. So
Let's get him on the show, man. He'll get a Raycon sponsorship for sure.
Canceled immediately. No. No, so the thing is now I should probably get him the newer pair because they have the revised model here that still has this 32-hour battery life with the charging case and everything like that. But now it has noise cancellation, multi-point connectivity, a lot of good stuff.
Yeah. I have been using Raycons for a long time now, even before they had the new models out, and they were always really reliable. The latest ones are even better. I mean, they're just very convenient. I have multiple pairs because I keep like one in my gym/sports bag, and I keep one by my bedside. My mother-in-law has one, which is really useful because she listens to really awful music, and rather than having it on speaker, she just has her earbuds in. So God bless Raycon for saving me from her music tastes. It's a big upgrade.
Well, if you're looking for a gift for the people in your life this holiday season, you can get up to 25% off site-wide at buyraycon.com/friends. Got 25% off. That is nuts. That's some good holiday savings at buyraycon.com/friends. It's buyraycon.com/friends.
All right, and we're back with a user question. These can be sent to contact@friendspersecond.com. This question comes from Connor, who says, "Hi, gang. Thank you for this continuously enjoyable podcast that makes my day a little brighter." That's very sweet. Thank you, Connor. With the trend of IP-based theme park attractions in full swing, such as Avatar, Flights of Passage built in Animal Kingdom, I didn't know that, Mario Land, or the Star Wars experience, I thought to myself, sorry, this is a really well-written question.
I like how this is written. This is great.
I thought to myself, what sick-ass video game universe would make a cool, immersive theme park attraction? My mind immediately went to Mass Effect or the Gothic streets of Yharnam. Now I pose this question to you. And Skill Up, though we know your number one pick will be Outer Wilds, what other game would you like to see? So yeah,
imagine
Ralph, you go first.
Shadow Moses Island, the ride. Come on, man.
I would get
Can you
roaring,
Can you imagine how sick that would be? There's like a shooting gallery against Sniper Wolf. There's like a escape room thing versus Psycho Mantis.
You could do rappel down a tower.
Abso-fucking-lutely. There's something with a tank with Vulcan Raven. I imagine there's some kind of VR thing against Metal Gear itself.
Oh, the smoking section can have infrared lasers.
Oh, yep.
Totally right. Yep. There's a bit where you have to like steer the Stinger missile thing. Oh man, that would be the sickest thing ever. And the whole aesthetic would be so consistent all the way through. You're stepping onto the island. It would be the greatest thing ever. It would be. I'd like want to work there.
I would drink 1,000 beers. I'd be so happy.
You get in, the first thing they give you is a pack of cigarettes. You're like, welcome aboard. And you're like, hell yeah, man.
There's a petting zoo with wolves in the caves.
Yep,
oh,
sure.
Yeah.
You could just keep going. Oh my god.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you have to crawl through the vents to be able to get into there. You know,
fist fight a guy with no shirt on.
Looks through one of the grates. You're like, what's that? And they're like, it's like censored and shit.
There's a section where you can pay $20 to fist fight a guy with no shirt on. That'd be really good.
Absolutely. That'd be amazing.
And then, of course, like a ride that would be the end, like the Jeep chase, where it's like you sit in a fake Jeep, but it's like a 3D screen. You know, do the whole Disney thing. That's a really good answer, man.
That's a really good one. It's funny that Connor says Mass Effect because there is a Mass Effect ride.
What?
In California. I Googled this because I was like, I swear, I have never been, but it is it's California's Great America in Santa Clara. It's called Mass Effect New Earth, and it opened in 2016. It's a 4.5-minute ride, an 80-seat action theater. In the ride's plot, which coincides with the timeline of Mass Effect 3 during the invasion of the galaxy by the Reapers, the audience's role is simulated as a tourist ship, so it's Star Tours. It's just Star Tours, which is repurposed from a disused military convoy. You get to... Someone plays Conrad Werner, a live-action actor.
What?
And Shepard's not in it, but Rex and Garrus Vakarian are in it.
So why haven't you been to this?
You know what? I asked myself the same question.
Yes.
Maybe I'll make a trip.
This sounds like content.
Is this the place that also has a lot of the Snoopy stuff?
What is it called again?
It should
California's
have like
Great Adventure?
I don't know what that
It's
is.
based on Mass Effect 3, so it should have like 3 doors to enter and like choose which door you'll go in.
The little ghost
and,
hologram boy.
and then all 3 of them just lead to the same place.
They're all different colors. But no, that's I think that's a really good one that they already did, but clearly not many people know about it. What about something like I'm thinking like your classic Disney ride, or like that Mummy ride at Universal, where it's kind of going on the story.
Yeah.
A Resident Evil story. Like,
Oh, they're doing a
see
thing in
that.
Japan right now. It's awesome.
are they?
They're doing a
What-
big
what?
stage show with like pyrotechnics and stuff where like a Leon
For
goes
Resident
on
Evil?
and he's fighting the chainsaw guy and like he blocks the chainsaw and stuff, but then Nemesis shows up and they have Resident Evil 4 Leon fight the Nemesis for some reason. It's really cool. I've
doing
watched the videos.
Because imagine if you were in. That's the thing, because it could be the minecart from 4. It could be the
that'd be a good
you're
one.
on the boat and you see the big what do you call him? Lagos? Is that his name?
Resident Evil is Resident Evil 4 is a very theme park friendly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Like,
it's one
Absolutely.
big rollicking adventure.
Yeah.
That's my answer.
Mine
Alright, cool.
would
That's a good
probably
answer.
be like the Super Mario, like that was cool. I got a little teary eyed seeing that. But what I would have really preferred Nintendo property is like Hyrule, with the music,
Yeah.
with little villages like Kakariko Village or something. Are you fucking kidding me? That'd be really
Yeah,
cool.
sure.
I'd be very happy
Chasing
to see
after
that.
chickens like Rocky Balboa.
Yeah, little chicken activities, going to little caves, solve
Getting
a
the
little water
Master
puzzle.
Sword. Like
Pull the
solving
Master
puzzles and
Sword
doing
out.
pulling the Master Sword.
that would be really good. But my real answer is Rapture. Rapture is just a location that I've always been obsessed with. I just like, it's just a combination of like my favorite like art things. I
Sure.
think for Rapture, it like you couldn't do a whole theme park world, but you could do like a cool bar and also
Yeah, you could do a sick ass ride.
like a good ride. Yeah, like a haunted
Yeah, I
mansion
agree.
type ride where you're just going through and just seeing a shit show of
Like
Rapture.
you're in when you're in a bathysphere and then you get picked up by a big daddy or something, you're like put on his shoulder and
yeah.
or just carried by a big daddy.
There's big daddies just like walking around. You can like shove one and then see if he tries to fight you, like in the
And then-
game.
yeah.
Kill child, save child comes up and the audience has to
That was
vote.
the best theme park. The theme park where you get to make a choice of whether or not to
About
kill
killing
a child.
children.
Anyway,
right.
enjoy that, Disney. Enjoy that
That's
idea.
right. I love that, Ron DeSantis. See how you go with that. Yeah.
Connor,
Run
thank
on
you.
that, man. You could fundraise on that shit.
Connor, thank you for your question. Next up, let's have this Star Wars Outlaws conversation.
Yeah.
Ralph, I'm very excited about this.
For sure, yeah. So, basically, if anyone doesn't know, Star Wars Outlaws launched a little while ago, not in great shape for a variety of reasons, technical, but also design-wise. Like, there were just quite a few design issues baked into that game that were kind of like, this doesn't quite work. And it's very unusual for a developer to circle back to core game design elements post-launch in a single-player game. Very common for that to happen in a live service game, but this is not that, right? Usually they just sort of focus on the DLC, they cut the losses and off they go, right? But Ubisoft are doing a whole like internal transformation thing that was kind of kicked off by the fact that Star Wars Outlaws had a rough launch. And I just think it's really interesting that they're making such big changes to the game post-launch. And they seem like really good changes. So yeah, we got the chance to speak to Ubisoft about it. I think, they only had about 20 minutes free, so it's a quick chat. But yeah, hopefully it's good. It's with Frederick Thylander, who's one of the lead game designers, and also Drew Rechner, who has taken over as creative director for Star Wars Outlaws post-launch after the previous creative director has moved on now. Julian Garrity, he's moved on to focus on the Division 3, currently in development at Massive. So yeah, that's the chat, and it's coming up now.
Frederick and Drew, nice to see you guys. Thanks so much for taking the time to join us. It is late over there in Malmo, correct? It's like 9 p.m.
Yeah, and early at your place. Yeah.
Yeah, yes, it is. But we know you guys are obviously really busy, so thank you so much for making the time. Really interested to talk about this because I think at a high level, just introducing it to our audience, everyone knows Star Wars Outlaws, but I think what many people don't know is that like there's a lot of work going on under the hood of that game right now in a way that's quite unusual for single player games post-launch. It's very common for that kind of very deep gameplay mechanic focused work to be revisited, in a live service game post-launch. But yeah, much rarer in the world of single player games. So I think it's really just interesting to talk to you guys about how this all came to be and what your areas of focus are and the like. So maybe start at the beginning though, and tell us, obviously the game came out, net positive reception, and I think that's important to draw to focus on at the beginning as well. I think most people broadly enjoyed the game. I certainly did, and I think its critic reviews were pretty positive. But clearly there was some issues with the game as well on that sort of core gameplay side. Things like combat and stealth, for example. Tell us what was it like to be in studio when those reviews started rolling in, and you saw some of that more negative sentiment begin to solidify around a few areas.
Yeah, I think, first and foremost, right, I think seeing so many people connect to, like, for example, the characters of Kay and especially Nyx and ND5, that's been incredible, right? And we've seen all of the, the artwork, the cosplay, the Lego sets, like all of that stuff, right? Was
actually
super cool.
Kay is a great character. I really hope this is not the last we see of her, because I actually really liked her a lot. I think she was fantastic.
Oh, that's great to hear. We love Kay as well.
And Humberly did a fantastic job in voicing and acting her. So excited about her nominations this year as well. So
yeah, exactly.
No, but we were excited because you're related. You released the game. Everyone's like, there's a big relief when you launch a game and then you get to actually sit down and watch your favorite streamers and whatever else play, and like some really engaged super fans. Star Wars has some super fans that really love going around counting gonks or whatever, like to see whatever they can see. And then the obviously the review cycle and everything started to come in, and that's when we get back to work and start analyzing. We start getting reports. We start seeing like what the positives, what the areas of improvements are. And it's pretty much a business thing. You go into it, you go look at the pros, you look at the cons, and you deal with it.
Yeah, and honestly, right, like we're gamers, right? We play the game, like we have our own opinions kind of on what works and maybe what areas of improvements we can spot, and then you cross-reference that with what our players think, what reviewers think, what our data says, right? Because we have data and we look at that, like, we can see what quests people like really struggle on, for example.
Yeah.
And so like all of that kind of like created a really clear picture, like pretty quickly actually, right? That we saw like friction with the forced stealth or the do not get caught or do not raise the alarm, like specifically, right? Those objectives and quests. And then we also saw, right, that, there was an opportunity to inject a lot more depth into combat, and then of course stealth being, a bit, say, inconsistent, perceived as unfair sometimes, hard to read at other times, right? Yeah. So those were kind of, I think, the major takeaways, I would say, right at launch.
And in some ways, it's lucky. At least me and Drew, our background is in combat design, and so it just happened that we were looking at it and going, we can do stuff here. We know this, right? This is a Unix system. We know this.
Well, that's actually kind of my next question, because it's, as I said in the intro, it's unusual for core game elements to be addressed post-launch in a single-player game. It's usually like the live service stuff where that happens. So, tell us what that was like in the studio to decide to do that. Because again, it's unusual.
Yeah, I mean, it's true, right? That I think single-player games traditionally don't have that same like support and updates that games like The Division that we both worked on have had. But I think actually that's also where us coming from The Division really like it kind of colored our experience there, right? We're used to listening and working with the community to, to make the game better and to continue to push. Because, I mean, right now with TU4, right, I think we can say that this is the best version of the game. There's never been a better time to play Star Wars Outlaws, right? And it's partially, I would say, a pride thing as well, right? Again, we're gamers. The team is full of gamers. We all want to put across the best game we possibly can. So, it's one of those things where you keep pushing and finding areas of improvement, and as long as you can.
And then practically, in terms of making the decision, you got the holidays coming up. We have the Steam launch coming up. We have the DLC coming up. We felt like there was dividends to be paid by investing in improving the game for all of those things to pay off, right? So there was a moment, an opportunity for us to put in the work and have that happen all at the same time.
Yeah, and Ubisoft top brass were encouraging of that sort of move, because I don't know, like obviously, allocating more resources to a game post-launch, was there any sort of pushback where they're like, no, okay, this is absolutely the right thing we need to do, we're on board?
No, I think across the board, right? Everyone was really supportive, like throughout the organization, right? The team, like down from the team all the way to top management, everyone was committed to seeing Star Wars Outlaws become the best version.
And then, I mean, this is a little bit behind the curtains, but like it's really important for us to have pretty high quality in our back catalog, because something like Star Wars can sell for a while. It's like an evergreen franchise, so leaving it in a good state was also something we really wanted to do. But so they were backing it and still backing it.
Yeah. So also, Drew, you have been appointed creative director, and Frederick, you've been appointed game director. So again, it's unusual for a single-player game post-launch to get a new creative director and game director. Is there any significance to that other than the obvious, like, oh, you're just working on post-launch updates and we need people in charge of that? Or does it speak to a broader, longer-term intent for the game and the franchise? Like, is there anything, am I reading too much into that, or is it just like, don't worry about it?
Frankly, the obvious thing is what's been announced before, which is Julian, who was the creative director, has gone on to start work on Division 3, which we announced a while back.
Yeah, he's stepping into the executive producer role, right? So
that was always the plan. So we kind of didn't think much about it. This was always the plan, so that project could start. So for us, if there was any attention paid to it, it was a little bit surprising, if I'm being honest.
Yeah, no,
Drew's been working on Avatar, whereas I was on Star Wars Outlaws for this whole time. So really fun to get back and work together, I got to say. That's been the most fun this fall, actually.
Yeah, I mean, we were together on Division 1, Division 2, the Warlords of New York expansion, right? So it's great to be back together.
Yeah, I remember. I do remember.
You got some Division history.
Yeah, we've all got a little gray in our...
That's right. Just a little bit there. That's it. So I want to sort of dive a bit deeper into some of the areas of focus for updating the game, like Title Update 4 and what it's addressing, and obviously the longer term stuff as well, what you're aiming at. But obviously just want to take a moment to also talk about the stuff that you're really proud of. You obviously talked about Kay and the reception that she got. What else did you really love about this game that you put out? And what else did you see coming back from fans in terms of things they really enjoyed?
I mean, I think there's few games where you can immerse yourself in Star Wars like it. I think the world we built and the details that gone into it and the love for the franchise, like the atmosphere seeps through it. So I think, that's also why we really wanted to kind of improve the core gameplay. We don't want anything to betray your experience of experiencing all of those worlds that we built, right? Like we put so much into it. So that's like, I'm super, super proud of that aspect.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, as a fan of the original trilogy of Star Wars, right? Like this nails the feel, right? Like, and I remember my first time playing the game years ago. Already, that was nailed at that time. Yeah. It was just like, yep, this is Star Wars. Like this, like nailed it. So I think that's just incredible.
But then, just to put a little perspective on what we're talking about, the improvements as well, this is a really broad game. There's like space combat and speeder bike driving and conversations and vendors and the pet and shoot. Like there's a lot that goes into like an action adventure game, open world game of this kind of breadth. And I think if we're being self-critical, that's also maybe where we didn't put all of the depth into some of the features that maybe they deserved, and that's kind of what we found them. We shipped. It's a huge effort to ship a game as broad in terms of mechanics and features as that. So I'm actually really glad I got the chance to go back and deep dive into like a slice of it, like combat and stealth, like we were able to do during the fall here.
So tell me then, because obviously there's Title Update 4, which addresses a number of things, which we'll talk about. But what is the overall hit list for this game as you imagine it? Now that you're creative director and game director, you've obviously got a certain amount of runway in front of you before you have to move on to other projects. So what are the things that you're really like razor focused on? By the time you roll off this, we will have changed X, Y, and Z.
I mean, I think there's a few things, right? So like number one, it's obviously we have 2 DLCs, right? We have Wildcard that just came out, and then we have A Pirate's Fortune, which is coming out next year. And so it's delivering, new stories like, that expand our characters and bring in new like iconic characters and things like that. So
try to make them the best the players play.
Yeah, exactly. And that's one of the best things about DLC is you take all of the learnings from the main game and you can make some of the best content that you've ever created because you've learned so much.
And you get to make it with a finished game.
Exactly. And you have the, all the feedback from the community and everything. So there's that aspect, right? And then I would say like our major focus was really injecting as much player choice into the game, right? And that's where, the decision to remove forced stealth from the game. So you always had a choice. You go to combat, do you go stealthy? But it's actually, if you go down to the micro level, it's also about like when you're in combat, like where do you shoot?
Yeah.
Like how does your positioning matter? Like, are you managing, the battlefield in terms of, the location of the enemies and like managing that spinning plate, right, of the crowd management?
For sure.
Adding weak points to the enemies so you can use that, like, those micro tactical decisions. Like that's, to me, is also about player choice. So I think it was really natural that we also went there. So, and then I would say the third kind of thread is really just listening, now that the game is out there, listening to our community and seeing, what really like resonates with them, maybe what opportunities they see to like, they're like, oh, it'd be great if we had, X, Y, Z. And really seeing what we can do to answer, those requests and those wishes. If you have
it's just the strategy up until now was pretty clear. We kind of knew what areas really needed attention, and that's what we did. But now we got to see how that's received, and what else the community and the people that do play it or start to play it over the holidays, what they would like to see improved, and then that's where we can take a look and see. So we're in a little bit of we were like a week after the launch, so we're in a little bit of observation mode now to see where people want it pushed next, actually, if we're being quite honest.
Right. Interesting. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So tell me, Title Update 4, like what are the big ticket upgrades that like were rolled out during that one? What's the deal with it?
Yeah, there's a lot. So, I mean, as mentioned like a few times already, right? Like one of the big ones was, adding player choice to the quest. So we removed forced stealth from almost every quest beat in the game.
Could I just pause on that one for a second and be like, what was your initial thinking with the forced stealth? Because it's like, it's a very, you know what I mean? Yeah.
Honestly, there's, and I know because you spoke to Julian Garrity about it back in the day, that there was an inspiration taken from stuff like Ghost of Tsushima, where like the idea was that you're living on this edge between detection and action. And then the idea was that action would continue, but you need to make it not escalate to the alarm going off. So you're supposed to like stop that from happening, and that's supposed to be fun. But as it turns out, you know, in practice, people didn't manage to do that, and they didn't manage to like see everyone running for alarms or sounding off alarms. So in practice, it turned out that meant detection pretty much equaled fail. Like we didn't manage in every occasion to deliver the opportunity to stop the alarm from being sounded, which was like kind of the space we wanted that action to be in. So what we did was we went back and revisited, okay, let's just add consequences for the alarm being sounded. You know, turrets turn off, reinforcements come in, you know, shit goes down, but you get to keep playing the video game, right? Like until you've managed it. And, you know, turns out getting to keep playing the video game is fun.
Yes, it is. So I'm sorry, I interrupted you when we were talking about title update 4. So the change to 4. So no mission now has a forced stealth element where if you get spotted, you fail, or is it like
one group?
Yeah. So we have there are actually a couple beats that are left. They're not very long, and they're not really difficult either. Okay. But we kept them in, and they're purely for like narrative reasons.
Got it.
Right?
Got it. Okay.
It's like there's a. I mean, I guess people watch, and I don't want to spoil anything, but there's like a quest beat where someone is talking to a bunch of Imperials, and
they're gonna kill
if you started like shooting,
they
would clearly kill the person because he's trying to distract for you. So it's like, okay. So there we say, you know, if you raise the alarm, then you've been arrested or killed, whatever.
But the adjacent feature, and this is a little bit behind the scenes as well, that was actually a lot more difficult than you know, maybe non-devs would know, is to allow you to really shoot your way through faction districts. So faction districts are these areas of cities,
I think
where
we call them syndicate districts.
Syndicate district, but like where you can go in there if you're buddies with them, but if you're not, you can sneak in and kind of sneak around and steal stuff and do whatever, and they would find you and throw you out if they caught you. And now you can fight back, and you can just blast your way through it if you feel like it. And it turns out that's actually really difficult to do, because we never really had all of the performance measurements and eventualities of starting crazy combat and grenades flying and everything in this middle of city. So there was actually a lot of heavy work to be done to allow that. It might seem trivial to people now that it's out and it's clicking and working, but behind the scenes, it was one of those like, you're doing what now? And the team really stepped up.
But that's so much of game dev, right? I mean, we tend not to. I mean, because it's the job, right, as a game developer to work hard and to do those things. But it's true. Like surface level, it's like, you can remove stealth. Why not? That seems easy. It's like, well, there's a lot of work to be done behind the scenes.
It highlights also something tied to what you were asking before, which is when Drew and I had done our analysis and we kind of talked it through and formed a plan of what we thought needed to be done, and we brought it to the team. It's a pretty daunting list. It was a hefty list of improvements and changes. And, you know, this is to people who have put years and years into making what was shipped. And some of those things changed things that they really had put their heart and soul into. And it was amazing to see how they rallied behind it and just completely blew our expectations out of the water. Because, like, as a director, you can ask for things. You could kind of help people and guide people to where you want it to go, but it's on them to get it there. And they went so above and beyond what we thought they would be able to do. It was amazing.
But honestly, I mean, if you look at, you know, TU4, title update 4, right, and you look at the kind of laundry list of improvements, it's like, a lot of that did come from, you know, like, okay, we source information from the community, from reviews, from our own perspectives, but a lot of it actually just came from the team, because the team is so passionate, and they love the game and they want it to be the best. So like, I mean, if like things from, you know, the look of the game, like visually, if you play today, like it looks better than it did at release, actually. And that's just simply because the team was passionate about. They're like, you know what, we spotted some things that we could improve and do even better, and they just did it on their own accord, and that's wonderful, right? To have a team that's just so passionate and in love with the game, they step up like that.
But like back to your question, so choice was at the heart of it, like allowing you to blast your way through or sneak or mix those things and not have that lead to failure, but to more gameplay. And then in the actual combat loop, right? Like it's fair to say that it's pretty arcadey, kind of, you know, swashbuckly, action adventure-y combat loop, right? And we kind of went in and said, actually, funny story, right? Like you see these scoundrels in Star Wars, and they're kind of shooting like Errol Flynn holds his rapier in an old in an old pirate film, and we kind of tuned the game for that. Actually, hip firing is better than ADSing. ADSing is for, but you can't fight 35 years of convention where people pull the left trigger before they pull the right trigger on their controllers. So we kind of just used that as a foundation and said, all right, this is how people actually play a shooter. They want precision when they ADS. So let's not just give them precision. We're going to retune all the weapons so they work, give them more precision, more interesting recoil patterns, all of that, but also payoff. But also make sure the enemy is clever enough so that you need to do those things, right? Like, so we added weak points on the enemies. We added like better headshot multipliers, but we also went back to some of our old combat design tricks where like the enemy is aware of when you're not aiming at them, and now they will actually take the opportunity to shoot you or flank you and do all of these things that makes you pay attention. Because it turns out paying attention and making little micro choices all the time in combat is fun, right? Like that's
I mean, that's where you get the depth and the fun from, right?
So it's a fundamental revisiting of what combat would be. Like it's a lot of little changes, but they add up to a very different combat experience in the end.
And so I'm so interested in that because, you know, obviously you guys made The Division, right? And that's like, you know, one of the best, if not the best, third-person cover shooters ever made. You know what I mean? And obviously everyone has different opinions about The Division as a game.
I'd agree.
But mechanically, I mean, like it's clearly up there. You know what I mean? No, I don't think anyone can really fault the game for its core mechanics. And so this was so different from that in terms of those core mechanics. And now you're describing sort of moving back towards, you know, that's almost it's not the same as The Division, obviously, but a drift back towards that sort of style of play, micro decisions, So my question is, why did you not go down that path initially, given your skill set and background and that knowledge?
Everything started with the fantasy, right? You wanted to be this like outnumbered thief scoundrel, right? That's who we were portraying. So we kind of derived all of the tuning and the mechanics from that, including like, okay, how many enemies should someone like that be able to defeat? And like, there's all of this, but it all stems from the core fantasy of the type of character. But then, you know, the rubber meets the road, and you have your players, and you observe how they play, and quite frankly, you learn a lot about what you've made, and we got this chance to lean into how the game was being played in reality and go in that direction. So that's kind of a little bit about that.
So we're also going to be able to carry weapons up ladders now.
So miracle
sounds like that's a big upgrade. And through doors,
and on the speeder too, and on the speeder.
Okay, that's good.
It's a game changer.
Also, like the original philosophy, you saw it in our reveal trailer, was that we kind of the pickup weapons were meant to be this like almost like a smart bomb, like almost like a very temporary, I'm going to stand up and just blast everything power up. But then as, you know, more and more weapons came in and they were tuned differently, there were some that you really wanted to carry with you up ladders and stuff like sniper rifles.
Yeah, sniper rifle is a great example, right?
Yeah.
Like if you see a sniper perch and you can't bring a sniper rifle with you, that's frustrating, right?
Sure.
So it was always one of those things where like original intent was cool and it worked with the original prototypes and everything to that effect. And then again, we learned from the game we were making, and now we have the chance to make it so.
Yeah. So, so Title Update 4 is going to deliver a bunch of stuff. Are there other major title updates planned that are going to deliver some of these big game-changing elements? And if so, what do they contain? What will they contain?
I mean, I think right now we're hard at work on Pirate's Fortune, the second DLC. And we're really monitoring kind of how the community responds to Title Update 4.
Okay.
To kind of see, like, okay, did we get it right? I mean, we're feeling pretty good about where like combat and stealth are right now, but we really want to, obviously the real test is putting it in front of players. So we want to get more feedback on there and see if we have more work to do there. And then it's really about, like I was mentioning before, listening to other things that the community wants, right? There's a lot of discussions on various features they'd like to see added to the game, and there's obviously opportunities with the launch of our next DLC to potentially like see if we can squeeze some of those things in. It's sometimes a little more difficult because we're working 100% on the DLC. So you got to find the resources and the time somewhere. But we're going to see what we can do. We really, we have such a passionate team. They're not
going to let us.
Exactly.
Rest on our laurels.
It's like everyone's pushing super, super hard. So we'll see. But we definitely intend to deliver more.
That DLC, whatever improvements we find, that's where we're going to aim to have them in.
Yeah. So obviously a huge amount of work going into title updates, DLC. Do you imagine this work folds into a broader, longer-term future for the Outlaws franchise? Like, would Massive be interested in making a sequel to Star Wars Outlaws? Is that something that you guys would be keen to settle up for?
I mean, honestly, right now we're just heads down into making the DLC and updating the game. So those plans, whatever we do next, we haven't really gotten into yet.
Yeah, I mean, we're super excited about this game and making it the best it possibly can be. So
cool. Fair call. All right, guys. Well, thank you so much for your time. Was really interested in what you guys were doing. And as I said, I really enjoyed a lot of what I played, and really keen to see, to return to the game after these updates, because I think it has really good, interesting bones, and I love the character, Kay, and I loved a lot of it, and so it's cool to see you guys take another swing at it, and really wish you all the best with it, and really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us today.
Yeah, thanks for chatting with us.
I'd love to hear what you think too.
Absolutely.
Well, absolutely. When both the DLCs have dropped, I plan to return to it, and I'd love to do that. So for sure.
That'd be cool.
Awesome,
cool.
man.
All right. Thanks, guys. All the best.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Take care.
All right, one thing I definitely wanted to talk about this time, we all kind of gathered beforehand, is the handheld stuff. Handheld stuff has been in the news quite a bit. Phil Spencer, once again, going on record with Xbox, talking about how they have been working on, handheld prototyping stuff. And then news from Bloomberg reporting right from Japan that there are sources familiar with the project that Sony is also working on a handheld device, excuse me, something that would likely play PlayStation 5 games. So it's a very interesting time. It's like handhelds are back in full swing.
Oh, the back, baby.
But it's different this time. Or is it?
Well, they never really left vogue, of course. No. Like in the Switch is like the third highest selling console of all time now, I think. And that's just and in large part because it is a handheld. The Nintendo IP, obviously, that's the biggest reason. But the fact that the form factor of the Switch is wild. So that has always been super successful. But obviously the Steam Deck has, I think, really opened up that conversation, because before we'd be like, oh, that's a Nintendo thing. Handheld, Nintendo, that's what people are used to. They've built their audience around that, whatever else. But I think the Steam Deck really demonstrated that no, there's other people like non-Nintendo fans who are also really interested in this. And the Steam Deck hasn't sold like an absolute boatload, but it's just really got people thinking a lot more about this category.
It's platform stuff, I think, at this point more than anything. Like, I don't expect this next PlayStation handheld, if it's real, to push boundaries and do weird things like the PSP did or the Vita did. I expect it to be a platform builder. You know, they probably are looking at, obviously like Nintendo, like even the Bloomberg reports sourced like cited saying, hey, they're looking at what Nintendo's doing. But I think also, Steam Deck proves it's like, okay, there was a platform. Valve had a platform. They're getting their platform out there more. And, you know, with services and everything, you have Microsoft, and obviously we know what they've been doing with Game Pass and cloud and everything like that. And Sony now also, you know, they've really doubled down on the whole PlayStation Premium and Plus and whatever, and streaming with the Portal and opening their games up and putting them on PC. So it's kind of almost like when you put all the pieces out, it does feel like a no-brainer move.
Do you think it's going to be gimmicky, or do you think it's going to be a straightforward, this is PS5 in your hand?
I want it to be some weird dumb bullshit, but it's probably going to be just like PS5 in your hand.
Like, I'll never forget playing Tearaway and it telling you to put your fingers on the back, and then they came through. That shit was cool.
I will never forget using the PSP web browser to look at porn.
Not familiar with that personally, but all right, man. Thank you for sharing that with us.
I'm kidding.
Appreciate that. No, you're not. Don't backpedal. So I would say, I think first of all, this claim that you can play PlayStation 5 games on the go, like that's a sort of, you can play those on the go right now with the Steam Deck, right? Like PlayStation 5 games are getting released and then they get ported to PC, and then if they're on Steam, which they almost always are, then you can play it on a Steam Deck, right? So that's definitely doable, and you can imagine that Sony would make that happen. I think Valve have been very clear about where they're at with the development of this hardware and what they see as the bottlenecks and battery life right now. Valve said repeatedly that until you start getting the next leap in battery technology, you're not going to be able to see a sustainable increase in power. In like when I say processing power and graphical fidelity, because you'll just drain your battery too much. So I guess what I'm really saying is that, like, in terms of what Sony are pointing at, if this is coming out a few years from now, you're kind of guessing that it's at that point where, like, okay, there has been a big jump. We can expect some better visuals while also the battery staying, you know, like being reasonable. But like at the end of the day, though, I don't know, man. I think it's a similar question. Like, right now, would you recommend buying an Xbox console to someone? I'd be like, nah, not really, you know? I've seen different answers to this question, by the way. Like, I get it, you know, Game Pass is really attractive and whatever, sure. Yeah. Absolutely, right? But I think on balance, if someone were to come to me like, what do you really think? I'm like, well, I think you should buy a PlayStation, and I think you should buy a PC in some way, shape, or form. Like maybe a Steam Deck, if that works for you, maybe a dedicated device, whatever. And I think you should buy a Switch. And I think at that point, you've got coverage of this entire industry. You can play absolutely everything that comes out, and you can kind of choose where you want to invest further and further.
Whoa, sudden jump scare. Alanah Pearce has joined the call. The internet's Alanah Pearce. Hi, Alanah. What's up?
I heard you were talking about PlayStations.
Yes.
And now I'm here.
Yes.
Alana was actually meant to join us earlier, but then her internet was just not working. And then she messaged me like, hey, it's back on. But then my Discord was in streamer mode, so I missed it. And so she just bombed into our call.
Now here we are. I'm very sorry about
that. So that's perfect. No, we love it.
Catch me
love
up.
it. Love to see you. We're talking about handhelds and whether or not it's a good idea that Sony are going to be doing a thing. And I was basically saying that, you know, if it's going to be in a few years' time, hopefully we can expect it to, you know, deliver over and above what like even the Steam Deck is doing right now, even though it's a pretty good device. But the question is, like, you know, whether or not it's actually something we have room in our lives for. Like, do we need another handheld? I personally am very well serviced by my Steam Deck.
A little maxed
Very
out,
happy with it. Exactly right. Do you know what I mean? And I'm going to buy the Super Switch. I'm calling it that. Even if they don't call it that, I'm still going to call it that. So, you know, like if Sony were then to sell me a handheld, I'm like, I'm pretty good at this point.
Do any of you have the PS Portal? I think that's what it's called, right?
Of course. One of those.
That's fine.
That's like
It's gotten better because now you can stream more stuff like without just doing remote play. So it's good. Yeah.
in agreement that I don't think I need another thing. But, you know, that's like part of this. Like, I remember like when they announced the PlayStation Pro, I feel like a bunch of people were confused, like, who is this for? And I always want to be like, you don't have to buy things. Like, it's for the people who want it, or like people who don't have a Steam Deck, who aren't already on the Steam ecosystem. Like, the fact that we're all like, well, I don't really need that thing doesn't mean that there is no market for it, you know?
No, I think if you're really juiced into the PlayStation ecosystem, and that's the only place you play games, the only place you buy games, then the opportunity to be able to play those games portably is really attractive. But I wonder how common that type of consumer is these days. Like, maybe we just live in this bubble because we have all the systems and, you know, we're moving between devices and we're not seeing it like so many other people see it. But my guess is that your average person these days probably does have more than one device, and, you know,
or your
maybe
phone,
they have
which plays a lot of things now. It's
and I haven't even, dude, I'm playing Destiny Rising right now on my iPhone 16. It is legitimately crazy how good an experience it is. Like, it is at times mind-blowing how well it runs, how smooth it feels. Like, I have really, like, I'm so sad that is a gacha game, to be honest with you. I'll talk more about it later. But it's a good-ass video game, and it's running on my fucking phone. You know what I mean? Like, that's insane. And so in that environment, it's like, well, how much do we really need?
And part of the competition for them, right,
mean?
like, is the new Xbox marketing campaign of the This Is an Xbox thing. Like, that's what they're going up against, is people streaming things to their phones direct on the Xbox app. Like, it's an interesting time to be doing this. Did the Vita fail? Like,
yes,
it did financially.
Yes, it did. It was like, I think it was 30 million units. It was definitely not a commercial success. It was not
good though.
I love
a
the
cool
Vita.
device.
Yeah, I just wonder how
Absolutely.
much demand. I mean,
I was gonna say, do you remember the PS TV for the Vita?
Yes, I do actually.
I have one of it, and like, not hooked up, but I brought it from work so I could play Persona 4 Golden. But yeah, they made a thing where you just plug it into the TV and you can play Vita games on your TV.
That's it.
You've come full circle.
like the Switch.
But
yeah.
but even like streaming, right? Like, as in cloud streaming, you know, cloud streaming right now is extremely good, right? If you actually try and use good cloud streaming, like xCloud's pretty good, GeForce Now is really great. Like, in 5 years' time, that stuff's going to be even better. And the idea that you want to have a dedicated piece of hardware when you can rely on faster internet, that's all going to get better. Better streaming technology, cloud streaming technology, yada yada. And obviously, that's not useful for everyone. People do live in places where they don't have good access to internet,
Totally.
or their plans are not good. Of course, absolutely. But again, like, but maybe over time that continues to improve bit by bit. It's definitely gotten better in Australia, for example. Alanah, as you could probably attest, when you come back, like, it's not as bad as it was.
When I had to review games in Australia, I would have to set aside 2 days to download the game. And then I would have to set aside like 12 hours. Like, I would usually leave a YouTube video to upload overnight because that's how long it took. So wild that wasn't even that long ago. And it's like, with anything like this, like, my immediate reaction is, if the Vita wasn't a huge commercial success and everyone else is moving in the streaming space right now and finding success with it, it seems like a weird choice. But then I'm always like, they wouldn't be doing it if they didn't see a market for it. Like, they just wouldn't. Hardware is so expensive to manufacture. Even having the engineers working on hardware is such like a laborious process that it's like they wouldn't do it if they didn't see some value in it. I'm just very interested to see how it goes.
It's also, again, to go back to what I was saying before you came here, Alanah, like, it's the platform building business thing where I think maybe this time they look at it like, well, we don't have to have developers make separate games for it, run a separate storefront, come up with all this new, like, educate the consumer on this new thing. It's just, no, if you have a PS5, you have a PSN account, this is more of that.
Yeah.
So maybe it's an easier bar of entry for them. I still it comes back to what I was saying before, like, I hope it does something cool. I hope it's weird. I hope it has like weird discs you put in it again or something.
Give me let me see how many ice cubes are in there when I tilt it or whatever it was that the Switch did. And we were like, cool, and they've never played again.
Or the touchpad on the back of the Vita, right? Like, you like tickle your Vita a little bit.
Hell yeah, let me tickle it. That's all I want.
Tickle my consoles. How much do you think, like, price-wise, it could reasonably come in at to make it?
Dude, I mean, I don't even want to imagine what that would be like 5 years from now. Like, these prices that we've seen, the jump in hardware prices lately have just been so wild. Like, just, next gen hardware and, God.
Yeah, and
no
the
idea.
PS Portal is what, $200?
Yeah.
And that's, a screen that streams. So a dedicated thing, yeah.
But that's not. But that's. I would say that's not quite fair in the terms of the controller as well. It's a very sophisticated.
True. It's a quality ass controller.
It's a quality controller that you've got, and a pretty decent screen.
The build quality of the entire thing is nice. It's like my favorite thing about it. It feels premium.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, I don't know.
I can't see this being cheap. I mean,
can't price it the same amount as a console, though, right? Like, surely, just optically.
Look, it's the kind of thing where I don't know about that. Like, it's just
Neither.
I really don't know.
How much is the Steam Deck?
I think they start at $399 for the base model, right?
Yeah, I think mine was $550.
But Valve is like obviously pricing really aggressively, and Sony don't do that. Like Sony don't try and, you know what I mean? That's just not how they roll. So yeah, especially if you're looking for something that can be compatible with stuff going forward, that can compete with what Xbox might put out, compete with the next generation of Steam Deck. I don't think they'd be looking to compete with Nintendo Switch 2, Super Switch or whatever, because Nintendo aren't exactly shooting for like graphical whatever. But
what do you mean?
Yeah, I can't imagine this would be cheap. Like I can't imagine this is going to be a cheap entry point into the PlayStation ecosystem.
We'll see how it goes, but I'm going to buy it because I'm a stuff goblin. I buy things.
That's like the bubble that we live in, right? It's like such an interesting thing to have these conversations. Is like the people on this call will do that and probably have 4 handheld I have everything. Like there's no gaming hardware that I won't have because it's like the thing you're like hyperfixation obsessed with, right? But like the average person is so far outside of that bubble that it's so hard. Like, are they just making it for people like us? Is it for PlayStation fanboys who maybe they think will buy anything with a PlayStation logo? Like, I don't.
I think
again, it's someone.
I see people just into PlayStation getting it. Like, I remember seeing a lot of just trying to like see what people were thinking with the PlayStation Pro, the PS5 Pro, and I've seen a lot of people that were like, "Fuck yeah, my PS5 Pro shows up today," because they're into the PlayStation thing, and that's all they have, and that's what they're into. So, I could see that same sentiment carrying over for the handheld.
It's a huge market.
Yeah. But what's it going to be called?
PlayStation Super.
What's like a word for life, but in a different language?
I only know PlayStation Vita as opposed to Vita.
Yeah,
it's Vita.
No, the VIDA as opposed to Vita.
Vita.
Portal. So
right.
what's another like dimension to another world? PlayStation
Gateway. The PlayStation Gateway.
I think they should just call it
PlayStation Gateway.
The PlayStation 1. Just,
I think that'd be sick.
The Series X.
The PlayStation Go.
I still think the PS1 is the coolest console they ever built. The little cute round, you know, the old white one that was like all round in the edges,
and
you get that little, it wasn't slimmed down, it was like just kind of cute, and it was so nice, and you can get that screen on top of it as well. That little screen that flipped
that was
up.
Powerful.
I love that shit.
I love
the chibi version.
The PS1 skin PS5 is like one of the best looking consoles I've ever seen.
It's insane.
So cool.
It's really nice.
So,
but I don't need it, so it's fine.
Do not need it.
Don't need it.
I think, I think, and this is the other thing as well, I think I can actually see sort of the sense of PlayStation going down this path of like a handheld, because I think the PlayStation user base is very large, very committed to their device, makes a lot of sense. Xbox, though, I think it's going to be an even tougher sell for them. I think they're going to move into a more like hardware agnostic future, and I could maybe see them releasing a device, but I don't know how many people might buy that. Like, I just... Yeah,
a handheld Xbox device. I think that would be very difficult for them to market, considering all of this is an Xbox stuff they've been doing. Like they would have to pivot to be like, wait, no, actually, this is.
But this is the one that you want.
No, I think I see their future being like they're also going to release like the same way they release Surface laptops. They have a very capable lineup of Surface laptops that you can use if you want to, but everything else also runs Windows.
True.
I think it's going to be the same for that. But if someone were to come to me and be like, should I buy that device? I'm like, no, I think you should buy a Steam Deck. Like, because you can also play all the games there, but also all of the other ones. It's just, I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I think it's a much tougher needle for Xbox to thread than it is for Sony. And I think Sony is still a tough needle for them to thread as it is.
I'm excited though, because I like hardware. So we'll just have to wait and see where it goes.
Stuff Goblin.
Exactly. Yep. That's me, certified stuff goblin. Next up, let's take another user question. This one is from the Substack, the very cool Substack that I like, that Lucy runs and coordinates. When does it show up in people's inboxes usually?
Mondays around 9 a.m.
Yeah.
Eastern.
So you can sign up for that, friendspersecond.substack.com, and we take some questions from there. So this comes from Yagito, who asks, do any of you have anything you consider a toxic gaming trait? Could be either silly or serious, Steam sales or embarrassing online gamer moments. For example, if I'm watching a streamer or Let's Player and I feel they're playing poorly, I get the urge to buy the game only to see if I can play better than them. Doesn't matter if I actually want to play the game or not. That is incredible.
Chad,
so good.
That's the best one. I don't have anything as good as that. Other than that, I don't know if I've confessed this on the podcast before, but I'm a rager. I'm a rage gamer. I'll toss a controller. I'll say,
I would not have guessed.
Throw a controller.
No,
it is.
I would not have thought that about
toxic. It is very ugly. My wife does not like that about me. The only one, actually. But
I am somewhat similar, except I don't toss things, but I language. And I get very yelly, and I have neighbors, and I always think, damn, they would have
What's
heard
going
that.
on
And then I
there?
see them like later on, and I'm like, oh, I wonder if they heard that. They probably did. They're being polite by not mentioning
One
it.
of my
but, like,
favorite things to do when it comes to like yelling while playing a game is like I do not rage. I'm not a rage quitter, but I do like if like I find something very hard, specifically making my call outs directed at whoever developed it. Like while playing The Witness, you're like, "Oh, come the fuck on, Jonathan Blow, you piece of shit!" And it's just like that.
You're like playing Pentiment. You're like, fuck you, Josh Sawyer.
Sawyer,
Fuck you,
fucking
man.
asshole. Like I did, which could never happen in Pentiment. I don't know how you would have that trouble in that game.
Exactly right.
It is very fun to personalize the insults to people who don't know you're doing them.
Yeah,
Highly recommend.
that's so
Miyazaki,
falling over
great
in Death
one.
Stranding.
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, me is like, I mean,
Kojima.
Yeah.
yeah.
They
I
had
like
it
that.
coming.
That's a good one.
Miyamoto. Mine, I think I've gotten over quite recently is I used to have to finish everything. I really had like a trait of if I have started it, even if I'm not loving it, I have to finish it. And I think I only cut that off in the last like 2 years.
That'd be the worst.
Yeah, it meant that I like finished a lot of games I didn't really care about, and I just kept watching my backlog get longer and longer and longer of other things I really wanted to play. So I finally cut that off, but it took, my whole life to get to that point. And it was like I would be disappointed in myself if I didn't finish things. So I would consider that toxic.
I agree, 100%.
My only other one is just I'll play a game called Sit Down and Scroll Through Game Pass or PS Plus or whatever, and just download shit and be like, yeah, I'm gonna play that, and then have a
Okay,
hard
well,
drive
just
full of
mention
stuff
it.
I'm
Never play
never gonna play or read.
Yeah, I totally agree. I did the same.
Mine is, it's a loading screen. I'll just pick up my phone for 1 second and I'll get right back to it. I need to stop doing that. I will put my phone on the other side of the room now.
That's
I'm
an
not
easy one to fall
distracted.
into. If I get bored in a TV show, I'm like,
Oh, what's going on online?
Exactly.
That's
When
right.
the
And
loading
then I look
screen
at
is
what's going on
finished-
online. I
And
get
it's
sad.
worse.
Getting on. That's right.
When the loading screen finishes, is it
My-
like you miss a cutscene, or is the character like looking at you like, are
Just
you
like, hey,
done checking Twitter
please.
or whatever?
Yeah, that's right. That'd be nice if it could watch you. Yeah. Yeah. That's it. Well, mine personally was just Destiny, but I kicked that habit this year. So, that was my toxic.
Well,
Yeah,
you
it
feel like you
sounds
played
like you don't play
Destiny
Destiny
Rising.
anymore.
Yeah,
you
fuck,
sound
actually,
really,
I
you
did.
really
I did
do.
great.
Alana,
I
your
did.
post was so funny.
I didn't mean to send it to everybody though.
Which post was it? What was this?
When I screen recorded, because I was looking through, I think I did it to the three of you, the people that you're following on Blue Sky, so that I could find people to follow. And when I was looking through yours, the top,
Oh, that's right.
it was like
Destiny,
40
Destiny
was
news,
Destiny
update,
accounts. And I was
Destiny
like, this isn't
development.
useful to me at all.
No. There's on Blue Sky.
I
There are
understand.
starter packs. Now you know. Now,
It
if
still
anyone doesn't
was
know,
really funny.
on Blue, when you join Blue Sky, there are like these starter pack things that people compile, and so you click on a link, and it just shows you a bunch of accounts that you could just immediately click one button and follow them. So if you're really into Destiny, for example, someone's made a Destiny starter pack with 40 Destiny accounts on it. And so I just clicked that shit and I'm like, hell yeah, man, load me up. So having said that though, I have stopped playing Destiny this year, but I have just started playing Destiny Rising.
Yeah, that's Destiny. What do you mean?
It's okay. It's definitely not for reasons we'll talk about,
Yeah,
but it's
gacha
Destiny
Destiny.
adjacent. It's gacha Destiny, unfortunately, which breaks my heart. But
To circle back to what you said at the start, you said you will yell, and sometimes you're worried about alerting your neighbors. What kind of are you good for one of those? Just like, bah! like one of those.
That's the least of the concerns. Like,
Wait,
I'm
what
just,
do you yell?
oh yeah, just terrible profanities.
What kind
Just
of games are you
terrible,
guys yelling at?
unacceptable. I am okay. I yell at two categories. I yell at FromSoft bosses when they're you know what I mean, that kind of thing. And then the other thing I yell at is when a game is clearly just fucking busted, or
wasting
something
your
is
time.
badly designed, and I'm just like, when I've had my time wasted, I get so mad. That is the thing. So like there was a little bit of that with Stalker 2 when I did my review for that one. That it does pop up from time to time. So
yeah, I could see myself maybe getting yelly. Like I have a lot of problems like with camera issues. If I lose a boss fight because of a camera, like that might make me pretty mad.
Yeah.
But the reason I ask is because like the only games that Rahul ever yells at are games I don't play, which is like FIFA or Call of Duty. And the mouth he gets on him with FIFA is terrible.
That's it.
And I was like, is it like a particular multiplayer thing? But you're doing it for single player games as well.
Oh no! When I did play multiplayer games, it was also that for sure. Like that was definitely in the mix. But I think now it's more about you're 35 attempts into a FromSoft boss.
Yeah.
And they pull out some bullshit you've never seen before. When they're at the last 3% of their health, and you're just like, you know what, man? Fuck you, Miyazaki.
Yeah.
And I'm
gotta
not
name
looking,
them.
not looking for any
right.
sympathy points either, but like it's like also too when you have like a deadline and like you
Oh
haven't
my
seen your
God,
family
yes.
and you're like, please,
Yes.
boss, please, I need to see my family. I'm
no.
so tired.
And the other one is like when a game just doesn't end. It's like Assassin's Creed. When I remember swearing so much for Valhalla because like it just kept going.
It's such an
and
interesting
then
thing
like
about game
I'd
reviews.
finish I'd finish one block and I'd be like, this has to be it, man. We're definitely coming to the thing. And then they'd be like, and next you will go to Northumbria. And I'm like, no, I fucking
new
won't.
map.
Lovely-
Okay,
it's a
I'm
lovely
done.
place.
I'm finished. Okay, no more of this. Let me go. You know,
Yeah, it's such an
that
interesting
kind
thing
of
about
thing.
reviewing games is like, I feel like it hurts way more if a boss kicks your ass because you have a deadline. Like it's so hard to get through. And I don't know how you can do your best to like try and act like that's not influencing how you feel about certain things, but you're a human. Like if you find that really frustrating, that's still going to show in your review that isn't necessarily going to translate. But what's the solution to that problem? Like you can't write every time, well, keep in mind, I had to do this in a week, so it was extra frustrating because who gives a shit? Like it's just such a specific circumstance.
But that doesn't, I never feature that level of frustration into my review process when I do that. Like I'm very cognitive.
Oh, so
like,
you
I'm
are
very
like
cognizant.
self-editing it out.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Because I'm cognizant of the extra pressure I'm putting on myself. And I'm like, should not be the way that I view this game or talk about it.
Yeah, I guess if you just keep
but
tabs
it is something,
on it.
Totally. But it is something that I have to push through to be able to get to the end of the game. So you know what I mean? And that, oh man, the fucking Elden Ring map. That one definitely got some swears because like you finish a zone, you'd be like, I'm done, man. And then it zooms out again. And this is all predicated on Miyazaki's initial lie, which is like, it's about the same length as a previous FromSoft game. Yeah. It's like, no, it's fucking not, mate. Okay,
not.
why did you say that?
He's never finished one. So what would he
That's
fucking
true.
know?
He wouldn't know. He wouldn't know.
I love how you posited that as Miyazaki's lie. Like it was
Dude,
Miyazaki's
that is
terrible.
like-
That's
don't
the
understand that,
podcast
like,
episode name.
Yeah,
I will never
Miyazaki
forget-
lies? Question mark.
I will never forget that lie as long as I live, though, because I really went into that process. We got that code like 6 days before launch, and I thought, okay, cool, 35, 40
You only got
hours,
it
we've
6
this,
days
man,
before
no problem.
launch.
Came in pretty late.
Yeah, absolutely.
I had it.
and so I was like, I'm just going to clear the decks. I'm going to just cancel everything in my life, but I will be able to hit this embargo, no problem. And then you're hitting like hour 80, and you're just like, come on, man, I haven't slept in a week. You promised me 35 hours, and you still got another 80 hours is getting towards the tail end of it.
But almost
But I
nobody
will
finished
never-
that in time. Like I think I was
I think it was
texting
just
Tam and
Mitch.
Andy.
It was
when
Mitch,
it-
Mitch.
Did Tam not
Yeah.
finish it?
No.
He didn't?
I think Mitch was the
Mitch?
only reviewer that I saw that put out, like Mitch from IGN, who finished it prior to embargo.
Yeah,
It
I
was
don't
just
remember.
Miyazaki's lie, man. He got us good.
Huge lie. Caught
Got
lying.
us again.
Got us good.
Caught in 4K.
All right,
never
with
forget
that, let's move on to what we've been playing this
Yes.
week. I'll start because mine's really simple. Other than Stalker and like game review stuff, I'm playing San Andreas. I'm playing GTA San Andreas.
Oh, hell yeah.
Banger.
because the definitive edition update thing tweaked the lighting and atmosphere.
Oh.
And it turns out for me, that's all I really needed. Was for the color palette to be a little bit more like the original game. And I'm like, okay, it's the same. It's good. And I've just been playing through it again, and it's just very enjoyable. It is
Yeah, so how does it hold up
well-paced.
now?
It's a little like some of the character stuff is like very cringy, and it's hard, I guess, like now knowing Rockstar and like the types of stories they want to tell. There's little glimmers of it here and there, but like a lot of it's just like little rough, but the celebrity voice acting and stuff, like Samuel L. Jackson, like he does a really good job as Tenpenny, and that's really cool to see. But for me, it's the mission variety and how much it throws at you and how every mission is different and every mission is memorable. That is just so impressive, and it just keeps going and going
flying
and going.
missions, man. Like I remember them being so infuriating.
Oh my god, yeah, they are still bad. They're still bad. Yeah. But yeah, I've just been enjoying that, and like getting back into the routine and like understanding Grove Street and kind of like knowing and remembering where everything is, and like going to the gym and like riding a bike through the alleyways. But then like so I've gotten over
so
like
cool,
San
man.
Fierro now, so like it's been cool just kind of like slowly chipping through it again,
Very cool.
That's really been
my god! And there was that whole gang system too, wasn't there? Where like your street could get overtaken.
Yep. Yeah, and you can just
like
kind of get
it.
like wrapped up in that for a while. Like I found
Totally.
like I naturally gravitated to that, and I was like, oh shit, an hour passed by because I'm just trying to claim, and especially because the game is more difficult than I remember. Like you can get mowed down pretty quickly if you're in a bad spot. You'll get gunned down pretty quick, and I do not remember the games really playing like that. But now it's just because I suck now, I guess, or whatever. But yeah, it's just been really cool to go through, especially like in between reviewing games and stuff. I just jump on into San Andreas and do that. The only thing I miss is that I actually miss that like long GTA boot up loading sequence where they like play the theme,
Loading screens for like 2
you
minutes.
see the
Yeah.
art. It kind of like gets you like warmed up for it. And now like with like just sit down, turn on my PS5, it's like right there.
And that
I'm like,
song's
okay.
so good too. The San
So
Andreas
good,
song
yeah.
rules.
The San Andreas one and the GTA 4
man.
one were like the best.
I listen to the GTA 4 one all the time. Like
I
when
listen to it while driving like a weird freak. Like,
me
I'm just
too.
like,
What's it
I'm
called?
so
It's
cool.
like it has a really weird name.
It's
that
like
song.
it's like Soviet. It's got like
Soviet,
a pun,
it's Soviet
yeah.
something. It's really strange. But when I did my boxing match last year, I ended up walking out to the God of War theme. But my original choice was the San Andreas theme song because I thought that would have been really cool. Yeah,
That's cool. That's perfect.
If I ever have another boxing match, it'll be that.
Yes.
Never.
Will you do another boxing match? Never
is
again?
Oh, here we go. You heard it here first, people.
Okay.
It's
okay.
happening.
So
Alanah
difficult.
Pearce versus Mike
Did
Tyson.
anyone watch the Mike Tyson fight? By the way.
Yeah, I watched it.
I didn't watch it. I just saw
Bet
the.
your ass I watched it. As a lover of boxing in the olden days. Oh man.
Okay, sure.
Oh, okay.
You old timey.
Ugh.
My biggest connection to boxing is really just the Simpsons episodes where they just set up Mike Tyson. That was it. I loved him so much. What was his name again? That character? His name was like, oh fuck,
I forgot.
I forget now. But yeah, anyway.
Do you think
It
it
was
was
a
rigged?
Simpsons boxing game too. Remember?
I don't know. There's theories out there that it's rigged. I don't know anything about boxing, by the way, so I wouldn't fucking know. All I would say is I don't think so. I just think Mike Tyson looked kind of old and a bit scared. You know what I mean? Because there's all these clips of him like crushing it in training.
Yeah.
But like him crushing it for like 3 seconds is very different from him like crushing it in the moment for like a full boxing match against a proper opponent trying to, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't
And
know.
having punches hurled back at him instead of just
And like
against a bag.
even if he signed up for a big dollar deal to like to like lose or whatever, I still think he'd probably make more money if he floored Jake Paul. Jake or Logan? Jake. So I reckon he probably would have just like signed that contract and said, yeah, I'll throw the fight, floored him and be like, yeah, bitch, that's right, you know?
True.
I reckon that would have
But
been
that's the thing. He
play.
doesn't seem like the kind of person who, like, if he's finished boxing now, I don't know if he is, but like, that's what you'd want to go out on? Like,
It's like a wet
Yeah,
a whimper? Yeah.
No, the thing he should go out on is that interview, that pre-fight interview he did with that little girl. Did you guys see that?
No, I heard about this
This
though. I
little
never
girl
actually
like
watched.
interviewed him. She's like, "What do you think about your legacy?" And he was like, "What is legacy? It means nothing to me. We're all nothing. We're all dust, and we're going to die." And he like
Hell
says
yeah,
it to this
dude.
little girl, and I was like, "Man, I'm rooting for this guy."
Jesus Christ.
Oh, incredible.
Anyway, what have you guys been playing?
I've been playing Stalker 2. Yeah,
Okay.
not a
we did a big chat about it. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
not a ton so far. I haven't played a ton of it. There are things that I like and things that I don't like that I definitely need more time to think about. But to me, it feels sort of like an earlier Fallout game, but much more serious. And I am enjoying that about it. The mission structure to me right now is extremely underwhelming, but I've heard that gets better later in the game. But
That's what Michael was saying. Yes.
right now, it really does feel like go-to place where you shoot thing and take item and then go back to other place.
Find guy.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Which I'm not loving, but yeah, I think the world is fun. I definitely need to play more of it to make any assessment, but I'm enjoying it so far.
How's it? Are you playing on
PC.
Xbox PC? How are you finding it technically? You're like running into lots of...
Not at all.
Good. Okay.
I had some
Good.
frame rate
That's
drops
good.
at the very start of the game. I'm running a 4090. I had some frame rate drops at the very beginning of the game, but since then I haven't had any technical problems at all. So it's been super smooth. And I'm running on, everything's on ultra. I turned one thing down to high, but I mean, my PC's like completely insane. So it's
There it
new
is.
and I
What
love
the
it.
Yeah, you got
hell?
one of those.
This looks like if
Whoa.
if Batman had a
That
PC,
is
it would like
sick.
be like
Oh my
that.
God.
Did somebody say Batman?
Yeah.
Who's that guy?
So yeah, I mean, I can run most things. It's a relatively new PC as well, so I can run most things pretty well. But yeah, outside of frame rate drops in the initial cutscenes and the early gameplay, it's been great.
Cool.
But I know I'm,
Nice.
Cyberpunk ran great for me, so
Yeah.
subjective.
No, that's the thing, because I'm running a 4090 as well, and I'm still getting frame rate drops and like the occasional.
Is it in particular areas? It's possible I just haven't like dug into it enough yet.
Sometimes
are
it's
really
when sometimes it's when like there's a bunch of enemies indoors, and when it rains.
Yes.
And like
Indoors is so funny, isn't it?
yeah, indoors is.
I will also
like
say some of
usually
the
it's the
AI
opposite
is
in games.
atrocious.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
And but I'm finding that funny, which is like a thing that I always had with Fallout as well. That I'm like entertained by the fact that certain enemies, if you stand on a car, just will walk away. They're like,
It's like,
oh, that's
cool,
too high.
you're hanging out there. All
See
right.
you later.
It's funny though because I've had moments where the real AI comes out,
Yeah.
and like every once in a while you'll get like very smartly flanked and be like, "Whoa, hey, there
Then you
you
jump in
are."
a car and they go, oh, sorry, never mind.
Yeah, they're like, "Never mind."
But yeah, I'm enjoying it. I really want to spend the next couple of weeks before the Game Awards catching up on games that I missed. I haven't played Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. That seems like a big one that I should have
yes.
played. You really liked
Dude.
it?
That's the Lucy
Yes.
game. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Lucy, did you like the Plucky Squire? That's one I haven't played either.
Haven't played that one yet.
Oh, okay. For some reason I
My
thought
Thanksgiving weekend is Plucky Squire and 1,000 Times Resist because I didn't. I
Yeah,
missed that
that's
one.
what I
Everyone
like,
is-
yes.
Fire. It didn't
raving about
grab
that
me
one.
like I was so excited for it, but it did not grab me like I was hoping.
I think it's a good game, Pluggy Squire, but I don't think it's like an essential must play in this last little bit.
Good to
Like,
know.
if you're running out the clock for the year, I think there are other worthwhile indies.
There's
like
a ton of
definitely
stuff I haven't
Lorelei.
played.
Never.
Yeah,
Never.
definitely
yeah.
Never.
Rise of the Golden Idol.
Oh yes, I haven't played
Rise
that
of the
either.
Golden Idol. Indica.
Oh, Indica.
Crow Country.
I have played Arkham Shadow though, Jake.
Bro,
It's very good.
it's dude.
It's
Oh
good.
man. Yeah, I don't even want to like spoil anything, but like, yeah, oh my, like
haven't
just from
finished
the
it.
Batman writing standpoint.
Oh my
like
God.
character stuff they do.
Very into it.
Yeah, it's up there.
I assume
It's
you've
up there on
spoken
my
about
list.
that on here plenty though.
Yeah.
We actually interviewed the studio lead on it. So
Cool.
Yeah.
it was a great chat.
Yeah, it was good.
Good game.
And the next VR thing, by the way, is an Alien game out on like December 19th.
Oh, yeah.
Like Alien Incursion.
Yeah.
Yes. So I'm actually quite keen to check that one out as well.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Lucy, what have you been playing?
Yeah.
I have. Okay, well, I wanted to give this one a shout out. So, you know, Plague Inc., they just randomly dropped a sequel today.
Cool.
That's crazy.
It's Wednesday, and I saw it because Stephen Totella wrote about it in GameFile. It's called After Inc., and it's basically rebuilding the world after the zombie plague. And it's just like a little settlement building game.
Great
that's
idea.
Great.
awesome.
It was $2, and I'm very early on. Like I've only been fiddling around with it for like 20 minutes, but just a nice little sim game. So shout out to that one. The game that I have been attempting to play is Dragon Age Origins, because have you tried playing that on a new PC?
Yeah. But have you downloaded there's a patch? Have you downloaded that patch?
So basically Dragon Age Origins, it's tough to get it to run on a PC. Like even if you just buy it from Steam, it doesn't work.
No.
Some BioWare launcher pops up and then I hit configure and it just dies. Takes you to a BioWare website to authenticate it, but then that website seems to be dead and it doesn't load. I had to go down the rabbit hole. Shout out to John Luke Seipke from GameSpot, because they had like just done this and so gave me all the instructions. You have to go to Nexus Mods and download a 4 GB new executable.
Correct. Yep.
Then you have to download another patch because it has a really bad memory leak problem. And so the game, if you don't have that, will just keep crashing. However, today worked through it we're there. I'm replaying Dragon Age Origins.
All right. I'm happy
How
for you.
good is that theme on the
Oh,
on the
it's
title?
so good.
Such a theme. And I think that's one thing I didn't even talk about with Valguard. I was like, the music in that game, generally not great. There's like one theme that kind of bubbles up a little bit at times, but compared to the absolute peak of Origins, man, just no, it's chalk and cheese.
Even just walking around, so I'm doing a rogue elf, city elf starter and class and storyline, and like even just walking around the alienage, it's so good. Like, but the thing is,
it's a great game. What a
so
great
good.
game.
But you can't play controller on PC because the versions are too different. So it is keyboard and mouse. So it's also weird because I'm like getting a bit used to it because I feel like I'm trying to use my Baldur's Gate muscle memory, and obviously there's differences. Also the font. I need to find a mod to increase the size of that font because it is like
It's such a plague of that era where all the text was too small and everything. I'm not a Dragon Age person. Are they sequels? Like, I know that Inquisition and Veilguard are like 10 years apart or something. Are they all sequels, like same characters?
yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, no, but like not all
Some
of them. You'll
characters
just
go,
have some of them. Like Morrigan will pop in.
Yeah, different main characters.
So it's
every
not
time.
in a Mass Effect kind of way.
No, it's more about like a shared. It's a universe.
It's the same world.
That kind of same world that kind of, and they hop around different stories and different time periods, and
So in theory, I
obviously-
could jump into any of them.
Look,
You could.
Yes, I just really strongly recommend jumping into Origins though, because it's like
I think
the
that's
best
actually the only one that I have played. Like, I played a little bit of Inquisition because I think it may have been it either was Game of the Year or was nominated when I worked at
was
IGN.
Game
It
of the Year. It was Game of the
was.
Year.
Yeah, Game Awards Game of the Year.
Yeah. I just know it was like a big deal in the office, but I played a little bit of it, and the only one I've played quite a bit of is Origins, but I just I don't even know why I fell off. Like, it was back in the 360 era, so, many years ago. It's a retro console at this point.
Why'd you say that?
I'm so sorry.
No.
But if you do have the chance to go back to it, it's very good. So
I'll add it to the list.
Well, yeah, that's how it goes.
All right,
Speaking
Lucy, so
of,
What have you been playing,
PC
Ralph? You
settings,
fucking
yeah.
gotcha
Ralph, what about
Destiny
you?
game.
well, actually, speaking of, this is a neat pivot actually, because I've been playing Avowed. I
Aha.
played the preview for Avowed.
Preview.
So
Many
it was a like a preview build of the first zone, which was only like 2 hours worth of content if you kind of beeline through it. But I spent like 6 hours with it because there's a whole bunch of side content that you can do. There's an area you can explore, whatever else. And tell you what, I just absolutely loved it. I really did.
Awesome.
And I went into it. Skeptical's too strong a word. I wasn't like, I think this is going to be shit. I was very much just like, this marketing to this point has looked a bit shaky. It looks like there's the change in tone kind of struck me because it was very dark at first and then it became a bit more sort of whimsical and they're a bit cagey showing gameplay and I was like, what's up with that? Then they did show some gameplay and it was kind of like, it doesn't look that great. And so all of those sorts of lead up points didn't fill me with a lot of confidence. But then I played it and I was just like, damn, this is really fantastic. The writing is so crisp and it's just fantastic. And every character that you meet feels like a person with like, things to say and like a life beyond your singular interaction. They don't feel just like vendors and NPCs. They feel like real characters. Even the smaller roles feel like that.
How's the combat?
I was surprisingly good. Like even though I had modest expectations about this, I had low expectations for the combat because first-person fantasy combat
Exactly
is
why
always,
I asked. Not a
almost
fan.
always garbage. And I'm not going to come out here and say, oh, it's fantastic, it's amazing, whatever. But what I'm saying is it will exceed your expectations because it feels really great to play. The swing, like the feedback on a swing, the way it kind of pauses very briefly when you connect, ragdolling of enemies, like the number of weapons you can use, there's like a dodge button, so combat feels very sort of light. And that's just the melee stuff. There's also like bow stuff. The bow feels great to use. There's a whole spell system as well, where you can use a wand for basic attacks and bring up a spell book for dedicated spells. It's just really great. Like, again, I just, don't picture Skyrim.
That's what I was going to ask. Is the combat Skyrim-esque or no?
Yeah, because that's what it looked like in those
More
initial.
responsive,
It does look
better
like-
feedback.
Absolutely. Just it's the same overall framework of you're a first person perspective, swing a mallet, block with a shield, cast a spell. Absolutely. But just imagine all of those things significantly better across every vector. That is how
Get
this feels.
dunked on Skyrim.
Damn. So re-release yourself on another platform.
That's right, exactly. But yeah, it really was the writing and characterization that leaked out at me the most, and also the RPG depth. And this was the thing that, obviously with Valguard that I was just really missing, because Valguard is so light in its RPG systems. It was so refreshing to play a game where you could be an asshole and you could talk your way out of trouble, or you could just... There's one scene where someone's hassling you, and one of the dialogue options is just crack your knuckles. You know what I mean? And it's kind of just like, you don't even want to talk
just
about
like real
you
life.
just want to fight, you know? And I love that so much. That was what I wanted. That's what I want when I suit up for these cinematic RPGs that, that give me a real choice on how to build my own personality, one, and also how to engage a situation, two. And it was giving me both of those things in spades in just a small little slice, like the first couple of hours of the game. So I really loved it a lot. And maybe that changes. Again, I definitely caution on this sort of stuff. Big RPGs, maybe it gets boring later on. Maybe the writing actually sucks when you get into the 7th hour. Maybe yada yada. Like, there's all these things that can go wrong with any game, especially these big lengthy RPGs. But I walked away from it so excited to play more.
Great.
Like, I really did.
Happy to hear it.
Yeah. I was going to ask you if there was anything that gave you pause.
The menu UI is garbage tier. It's so bad. I hate it. Honestly, that was it. Performance was a bit shaky at this point, but it's not fair to think about that too much yet because we're still 3 months from launch. I mean, it's nothing else that jumped out at me and go, I wasn't sure. Like that. So far, it was a very, very competent, well put together package. I'm not expecting anything too big either. Like, I do expect this to be at about a 30-hour mark. Obsidian have not said that explicitly. They haven't said, this is a 30-hour game. But at no point have they tried to gas this up as like a sprawling 100-hour adventure. And given the scale of games that Obsidian typically make, they typically make smaller games, smaller RPGs.
How long was Outer Worlds? Surely that was...
It was like...
That was like 15 to 25 hours.
Really?
No. Yep. Short game.
Wow.
Yep. 15 to 25 hours depending on how you play it.
What I'm curious to see though is like my problem with Outer Worlds was that it like afterwards, like it wasn't very memorable. Like I just feel like maybe it was a little safe. So I'm curious to see if this is any different, because when I previewed this, I wasn't really jiving with the characters or world, but I only spent like an hour with them.
Was this at Gamescom?
Yeah.
Yeah, I played that Gamescom build as well, and I didn't want to do any coverage on it back then because I was like, I don't think I've played enough of this game to really judge it. Because I walked away the same sort of vibe, which is kind of like, okay, I've seen what this is now, but I'm not really clicking with it yet, right? But this additional build with more characters, with more choice, with more the exploration, by the way, really great. Very small area that I could explore, but extremely dense, very vertical, full of secrets, full of things that rewarded my curiosity. So yeah, I mean, look, I don't know obviously how it all goes long term, but I would say that I felt way better after this build than I did that Gamescom build.
I'm
Jake,
super happy to hear it. Like the initial gameplay trailers, this is a game that I want to love, but they didn't really sell me.
Yes.
But I really
trailers,
I love Obsidian. Yeah, they just didn't. I don't know. I couldn't even really articulate why. Something about them just didn't really drag me in. So I'm like super glad to hear that.
I think there's just there's a vibe to it as well. It's so fancy, so colorful, and so it feels like such a spirited away adventure. Like it really does feel like you've just been transported to this weird other world.
Outer Worlds was good at that too. Like it was like if I would give that game credit for anything, it was so fucking colorful.
Yes,
just like huge splashes of colors, big plants, like did look very alien for sure.
Yes, yeah. So I am very hopeful that Obsidian land it. I think they've had extra development time on it as well to get that polish up, and I'm bullish on this one. Let's put it that way.
Awesome.
I'm bullish on Avowed. Yes, and other thing I've been playing is Destiny Rising.
That's the mobile one.
What is it?
Is
Go
this like
on.
Yeah, what
beta
is
of it, or?
so
I don't
this is a closed alpha.
pay attention to the Destiny
so the background
sphere.
to this is that NetEase have made this game, not Bungie. So Bungie licensed the IP to NetEase. NetEase worked for quite a few years to make this game. It is mobile only, and it is a Destiny spin-off. It is set in an alternate timeline for Destiny, and it's also a prequel, but it's also a prequel to the current events of Destiny. So it predates traditional guardians as we know them, and there's like light bearers. And what that ultimately means is there's a bunch of characters who are gacha pools. You know what I mean?
What about
and
the
those
robot who fucks? Is he in it?
Are we talking about Cade?
Yeah.
No, he is not in it, sadly. But he's not in it yet, but Ikora is in it, and she's one of the main characters from the main game, right? So, I would say fundamentally the big difference is that rather than playing a guardian that you build, you pull the lever, you get a character. That character can only use certain abilities, can only use certain weapons, and then you need to then pump all sorts of currencies into them to upgrade their abilities and their core stats and their weapons, right? And obviously this is a gacha game, but having said that, it is pretty remarkable how broad the scale of this is and what they've managed to cram into this. There are so many different game modes. There are so many missions. The introduction alone is like at least 8 hours long worth of content. The introduction to this game is significantly better than the introduction than base Destiny 2 gives you. Like significantly better. There's PvP in this game, which I haven't even got up to yet. There's
potentially a stupid question. Is it first-person shooter?
Well, it's another thing. It's first and third person, so you can choose which you prefer. And the combat feels really, really good. I'm playing it on with a Backbone controller, and I just love the feel of it. It doesn't feel as good as Destiny, mind you, like the main game, but it feels solid enough, and it runs superbly well on an iPhone 16.
How does the third person work? Is it kind of like, is it the same camera view like when you do like Guardian abilities and stuff?
Correct, exactly.
Okay.
Like when you walk around with a sword in Destiny, it's third person. So it's essentially that.
Okay.
And then you're shooting your weapon. And you know what? Nothing is really lost by that. Like there is a bit of weapon feel that is lost in that, sure. But a lot of people just prefer to play that way. I don't. I actually play first person when I'm playing this, and it just feels great. And, it's just... They have like a clan system in this that you can build like a base for your clan and upgrade it. This is the kind of shit we've been begging for in the main game forever. I will say this. This is my biggest takeaway from Destiny Rising. It makes me yearn for a Destiny 3 so much because even though I don't like the gacha bullshit, it is cool to interface with Destiny along new progression pathways, right?
Yeah.
It's cool to be able to get upgrades and items in a different way than I have been receiving them for the last 10 years. It's just a fucking shame that way happens to be gacha, right? Because if this was just this, even like their remixing of the lore elements and just little spins on the world is so refreshing to me.
What do you mean by, you said like alternate timeline, but it still has the same characters? Why did they do alternate timeline? Why not just have it be a prequel?
Because, well, I don't know exactly, but I suspect it's because
they didn't want to deal with the canon.
Maybe, but I think it just lets them do interesting things. Like, for example, one of the first things that I encounter while I'm walking around it's a cutscene moment. There's like sentinels, and there are these big sentient robots walking around Earth defending it. And these, when I say big, I mean they're as big as like gigantic skyscrapers, and that's not a thing we have in main Destiny, but it's a cool idea to interface with. That is the Traveler enabled this technology where giant mechs are walking the planet protecting humanity. That's a sick idea, right? And there's one mission where you go to its hammer, and its hammer is just fallen on the ground, but it's so fucking big that it's like, it's as big as a football stadium. You know what I mean? And it's just a cool thing that this game can get. And so this is what I'm talking about, where it's like, I wish we had a Destiny 3 that wiped the slate clean and let us experience a new spin on the universe and new progression pathways for our weapons and just all of that shit. I would love that, because I'm very much done with Destiny 2 at this point. Like I feel that very deeply in my bones that I played it for 10 years. That's enough. But playing through Destiny Rising, I'm like, man, if you were to give me this without all the gacha bullshit and with that AAA polish and Bungie behind it, I would eat this shit up. Like I would be fucking all over this. I would make this my life again, So it's a bummer that it is gacha, and it's also got me thinking a lot about gacha as well. Like it's such a shame that so many of these premium games go down this path. It almost feels like an entire all of the technological hardware, like just such a waste is what I'm trying to say. Like it's just so much game design, so much stuff that's so cool, and it's all held like hostage to this shitty business model, and we can't. I don't want to get into the whole thing, because I know some people are like, no, it's fine.
Yeah, some people love it.
People love it. I fucking hate it.
Not for me.
And it's just a bummer, because you kind of think, well, in 5 years, 10 years time, will we look back on this and think, what a shame that so much time and development energy was lost to that business model? Or will that business model just become so predominant that in 10 years time, every game's going to be a gacha? I think probably the latter is more likely, you know?
Yeah. I think the appeal of it is that it's not that much development time. It's slightly easier to make a gacha game. That model exists already, you know? So it's like, it's not that it doesn't take time to make, it's that it's a little easier to make than it would be to make a Destiny 3. I mean, obviously when it's on mobile, like a lot easier to make, but it's that it's not as hard. That's the appeal. Costs less money, make more money.
I wouldn't say. Well, I might personally. I would say I don't think that's the appeal. I think the appeal is that you can make like infinite money glitch with gacha. Right. It's just with Destiny 3 you can't do that. Like because you can't price it that way. You can't cram that shit into it. Otherwise, people would get really mad.
Yeah, we agree. The appeal to the publishers is that it costs less money and it makes them more money. Like that's why they're doing it, right?
Sure. Because I'd also say that I don't think this would have cost a small amount to make. I would say if you look at the scale of this game, this is there's a significant amount of money to make this video game, because it is
just not as much as it would cost to Destiny 3.
No,
that's all.
Or a fraction of that, because the cost of a full-blown Destiny 3, I mean, it would be eye-watering for sure. So anyway, look, I recommend checking out Destiny Rising when it comes out. I would say that, and obviously everyone's got their own approach to gacha games and what have you, but I will say that it's a very impressive product on spec, and I think it's worth seeing what kind of game is possible on mobile at this point, because it is constantly surprising whenever I dive into that and play these sorts of games. I'm like, wow, man, mobile can do a lot.
Don't you guys have phones? You know what I mean?
I do, but I have a 13.
That's a deep cut right there.
I've got a 13 Pro.
So you got to catch up on that shit. Get
Ew.
that up there. Cringe.
Well, with that, let's jump to other stuff that we've been engaging with. Show and tell. This is where we bring up a lot of, if you don't remember, this is where we talk about things other than video games that we've been enjoying. Would you like to start? Do you have anything for us?
I didn't think of anything. Last time I showed you a camera that was from
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Just
That
Beyond,
was cool.
which was not announced at the time, which is a movie that I was in that came out last month. That was very fun. I don't have anything to show and tell. I've got a lot going on right now. Some big announcement stuff coming next week. Some very cool, exciting stuff in the next 2 weeks. So my show and tell will be stay tuned.
I like that.
Okay.
I'll take that. I watched a movie. I watched Super/Man, the Christopher Reeve story. This is a documentary about
Did you cry?
Christopher Reeve. Of course I cried. Yeah. I cried. So it's interesting. I actually cried just a lot with like them showing some Superman scenes and me kind of being like, damn, I forgot how fucking good he was.
Amazing.
He was really
good. So for people that don't know, it's Christopher Reeve is the actor who played Superman in the original Richard Donner movie from the 70s and then the sequels. And in the early 90s, he became disabled. He had a horse accident and was paralyzed from the neck down. And then he became a disability advocate for the rest of his life, worked very hard, pushed boundaries in a lot of ways with some stuff like that. Some things controversial at the time, but I think it did a really good job retelling that stuff. So basically, like, no surprises. I was alive during this, so like I knew all of this, but I think they told it in a way that's really good and is a good way to set examples for people. It was just nice, just very nice. And then on the other side of the spectrum, I watched Gladiator again, dude. Let me tell you.
Oh, wait. You watched number one.
The original, yeah.
Okay,
I actually don't have any interest in watching the new one. It just didn't really. I was like, nah.
You don't want to get your popcorn bucket?
I do want that.
That looks pretty.
But I was like, nah,
sick.
I don't know, man. So I just watched the original, and I hate to be that guy. Like, they don't make them like they used to, but like, holy shit,
They don't make them
They
like they
don't
used
make
to,
him like
man.
Gladiator anymore.
dude. Russell Crowe is incredible. You guys made a
So
really good guy there. Every line.
Well, sort of.
Yeah, well, okay, you might want to take that
Hey,
back.
you gotta take the good with the bad. You gotta take the good with the bad
He's
with
so
Russell,
talented.
okay? He's so talented, but he's such an asshole.
Every
He
Such a
line,
really
great
is.
every
singer,
bit,
too.
man. Every like sun-baked scene that just looks like real. just I loved it. I had such a great time. It's
It
been
had
a couple
the
of
marketing
years.
campaign has had the exact same effect on me, where I don't want to watch Gladiator 2, but the marketing made me want to rewatch Gladiator, which I've not done in
Absolutely.
15 years.
It's like
I
a
might go do that
phenomenon
this
that should be
weekend.
studied. It totally
Yeah.
is a thing.
I'm really glad it holds up.
I wish they'd
Yeah.
made you guys know about the original thing for Gladiator 2?
Oh, the original script?
No?
Which was,
it's
so
fucking
Russell
awesome.
Crowe got Nick Cave to write it, as in Nick
Okay.
Cave and the Bad Seeds Nick Cave.
Sure.
And it was about it was the Gladiator, but he time travels and he's in the Crimean War or
It's
something.
undead Maximus fighting through different time periods.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
That
And
sounds
funnily
like
enough, it didn't get made.
It sounds like that Kingmaker game. Yeah, the one with the guy with the pickup truck driving through medieval
warfare with guns. Yeah.
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 That could
I'm
rival
sad that didn't get made.
Megalopolis.
So if you've
I-
never watched Gladiator, you should. It's streaming on something. One of the major ones that you might be subscribed to. It's streaming on that. Oh, Paramount Plus. So no, you don't have
So
that.
no,
You
you're not
shouldn't
subscribed
have
to that.
That's I call that the Mission Impossible app. I go, I'm gonna fire up some Mission Impossible, and I click on Paramount Plus. Anyway,
Wow. Okay. You have a subscription to that. Wow. You're like the only guy.
Well, the thing is I used to have a subscription to that because when GameSpot was owned by CBS, they merged and became Viacom and Paramount. So they didn't realize until literally 2 months ago that all of our logins still worked. So I was,
Right, okay.
I don't know, I would tune into like one thing a year because I don't know what's on Paramount Plus. And then they cut it off. And so now I'm not going to watch Gladiator in protest.
Devastating.
well, Lucy, what do you got for us this week?
I watched a show on a different streaming service that I do pay for, which is I watched The Penguin on HBO.
No spoilers.
I'm not going to spoil, but I finished it last night and I really enjoyed it.
It's also on my list of things to watch. Like I'm
Absolutely.
so glad it's good.
That and Arcane.
Oh yeah, and I want to watch Arcane. But no, Penguin is a series starring Colin Farrell as the Penguin in the aftermath of the Batman 2022. And it is all about how Oz Cobb is looking at the power vacuum left in Gotham and trying to make his way to the top. So you got the Falcones, the Maronis. That confused me when watching The Batman. It confused me still throughout this. I had to, like, every time they would say a surname, I'd go, right, it's that one. And I need to get the actress's name because she was amazing. She was in
Sophia Falcone,
oh my god, she was in like Black Mirror and stuff.
Christina
30
Milioti.
Rock. She was in 30
Malati.
Rock.
Yes, she was fantastic as Sophia Falcone. Like, oh my
I
god,
heard her performance is real standout.
really great. And yeah, I enjoyed it a lot. I've been really struggling with my attention span recently, and it kept me hooked all the way through. A lot of things have been said about episode 4. I will agree that is a standout, but the start of episode 7 fucked me up. I think if you've seen it, you will know why. But it is a really good show. I think some of the accents all over the place from Colin Farrell, like, but I enjoyed that. Like, it was kind of
What a wild thing. They're like just like a hot guy. They're like, hey, hot guy, play a ugly guy.
One of the most
he's
handsome
like,
men on the
hell
planet.
yeah.
They're like, cover that. Crazy.
Yeah, that's right.
But no, I really enjoyed it. And then I also saw Heretic,
Was it
which
good?
I
I love Hugh
liked.
Grant.
I think he's fantastic in it.
Good.
He's the perfect amount of creepy, kind of engaging. You can't keep your eyes off him, but very much tinged with creepiness. I didn't love it as much as I thought. Like, I really loved Longlegs. Not that they're, exactly the same, but I think when it comes to the way I feel about a movie, it was like, I recognize a lot of this is good and I'm enjoying it kind of in the moment, but I came out of it and I wasn't kind of like buzzing in my seat like I was at the Substance or something. But I think it's a fun paced, slightly dumb horror movie.
like
That,
those.
yeah, it was good. A really unexpected Star Wars thing in it as well.
Okay.
Okay.
Like, really, it's bizarre. I don't want to spoil it, but I know the clip is out there because I saw IGN posted the clip, but it was like, I just watched it. I was like, all right,
okay.
it's fun.
Fair enough.
That's me.
I don't have much. I saw Moana 2.
Oh, I'm
I got
sorry.
invited to the Australian premiere of Moana 2, and I went.
I hear
and
it's not good.
You're such a
It's
funny
not-
person to be invited to that. That's
I know,
the kind
right?
of
I was
content
like,
he makes.
why am I on the list for that? I was like, all right, let's go see Moana 2, and it was fine. It looked, you know,
The first
obviously
one's great.
We're not the look. I like the first one. The second one is just. I think has Disney ever done a good sequel to any of those mainline properties?
Toy Story. Nope.
Oh, you're right. 100%. No, absolutely, you're correct. That's they're fantastic. 1, 2, 3.
They're all very good.
But like,
yes.
Aladdin 2 was Aladdin
never
2.
even- is that like-
Jafar's
know that existed.
Rising? Jafar
Lion
Rising?
King, Lion King.
Is that really what it's called?
Jafar's Rising.
True.
It's
Aladdin
something
2
like that.
Jafar
Jafar's
Rising.
Revenge.
No, it is actually called something like that. It is like
Yeah.
Jafar's Revenge or some shit. Like, yeah, it is.
The Return of Jafar.
Yeah.
Wow.
Jafar Strikes Back.
See, yeah, Nintendo, Disney need to figure out how to like land sequels because they just it feels
Because there was
like
Frozen 2. I didn't watch
Oh
that
yeah, I think
either.
that's pretty well received. But I would
Is
say
it?
like the
Okay.
Toy Story
Oh,
trilogy
once-
is one of the best of all time.
Yeah.
for sure.
But do they count because they're Pixar? Is this Pixar? No.
That
No,
was
it's not.
also
This
my
is
thing is
Disney.
that I don't know if hang on,
Yeah.
is Toy Story
Yeah.
does it count?
So anyway, that was that. I would say the only other thing, and this is not really in the normal remit of what this segment is. However, I would say that I did go to LA for a Spotify event.
Oh, you can talk about it now.
I just want to. It's like Spotify are basically like making a big push into video, and you could already upload as a creator. You could already upload video to Spotify, but you couldn't monetize it. And so, rolling out next year, you're going to be able to monetize it. And I think what that means for audiences is that like creators that you follow are going to be far more likely to put their content on Spotify. And the big thing for audiences is that if you're a Spotify premium subscriber, you get to watch all that content ad free, you know? So that's pretty compelling, I thought. And so, yeah, I went over there for that. It was a good presentation. Kind of interested to see what they do with all that stuff. And yeah, that's it really.
Cool.
I don't know. It's just interesting that Spotify are trying to like compete directly with YouTube. And I think they're the first ones to come along. They're like the whole time I've been doing this, no one's really tried to have a proper swing at that. No one, you know, and this is the first time.
I mean, I was going to say, Nebula, but a very different, not as mass market,
nerds.
but yeah.
The scale is just not even close to
Yeah.
right?
Scale's not the same, but in terms of like giving back to creators.
Spotify has, I think, 250 million premium subscribers.
Damn.
Just to put
God,
it
I've
into
had a
Premium.
subscription
Wow.
since like 2000.
Yeah.
Me too.
So I mean, and their monetization model is based upon like paying creators, you know, based on that premium subscription thing. So if you have a premium subscription and you watch their content or whatever, then like if I watch a Game Ranks video on Spotify and I'm a premium subscriber, then that's how you get paid, right? Or based like a portion of my premium subscription will go to you, you know? So
Interesting.
I don't know. It's just kind of interesting. I'm into it, and yeah, I'm gonna have a bit of a look at that. See what we do.
Yeah.
I'm gonna
Interesting
put
to see what
Spotify
happens.
on Game Ranks. Game Ranks on Spotify. Gonna do it. It's gonna be me,
I mean,
Joe Rogan, and whatever.
call a
else.
daddy.
You know
And
what?
Motley Crue. And
I did actually see, because I was going on the app the other day to find something, and it did push a video podcast to me that something I didn't follow.
Wow.
Like some
You're gonna see a
algorithmic
lot
stuff.
more of
I
that
accidentally
because-
uploaded an MP4 instead of an audio podcast once and had a bunch of comments about it not working for a bunch of people because of that.
I
So
see. Sure.
hopefully they figure it out. But it was like anyone who was trying to listen to just the audio version had a lot of trouble streaming it or
Okay.
something. They like had a bunch of problems. I'm sure they fixed that before launching this program, but it'll be really interesting to see how it goes.
There are these smoothies available in Los Angeles. Have you guys heard of these famous smoothies in Los Angeles?
What is it
Are
called?
you going to say something like Joe and the Juice? Or
No. There's like this thing where people line up around the
Is it
block for smoothies.
how do you say
Yes.
it? Yeah,
That's
Something like that. Erewhon
Oh,
or some
man.
shit. I don't
Oh,
even know what it's
Ralph.
called. Dude, I don't know.
Is
I
it
don't know.
creation?
No, it's not creation. It's like Erewhon or whatever it was, whatever Jake said.
Are you
Anyway,
an
people
Instagram
line-
yoga model? Like, what are you?
Yeah.
Yeah,
No. People
Goes
line up
to
around
LA
the
once.
street. No, listen. People line up around the street. Luckily, they didn't have. I didn't have to do that because at the Spotify event, they just had a little kiosk with them sitting there,
Wow.
and you just grab them, and I'm like, boom.
Wow.
And then
Must
I
be
had
nice.
one, and I'm like, this is actually the best smoothie I've ever had. So I understand why people line
Privilege.
wow.
Look at you go.
Can't imagine the number of calories. Like those crumble cookies or whatever that you guys have over there. They seem dangerous.
Yeah, don't eat those.
Those ones with like 8,000
Everything. The
calories.
bread here is dangerous.
Oh, yeah.
Ralph, everything
No.
is bad.
I had a friend from the UK come and stay, and he bought some bread. because we did some groceries. He brought some bread. And when he was leaving, he was like, oh, I'll just throw this bread out. And I was like, that shit's good for like 2 more weeks. You leave that there.
It's unreal.
Our bread here lasts for 4 fucking days. And that's it, baby. It's done.
My parents refrigerate their bread. So like when I was home recently, I had to take, well, some of it's in the freezer. So we'd have to defrost bread to use it because otherwise it goes off.
So
Here,
Australian.
never.
So
I've actually never had bread go off. Not even one time I've had to throw it out in LA.
That's
I don't have to
terrifying.
sniff milk before I use it anymore because it just it's fine. It's
Crazy.
minging.
It's minging.
Minging.
I mean, she's not wrong. The one thing that occurred to me, because again, I've had kind of too much going on to consume things recently, but the one thing that occurred to me that I have been watching is the John Benet Ramsey documentary on Netflix.
Yeah.
It's awful.
I don't know anything about this person. I don't know what that
The
means.
situation is
I know
awful,
this.
or the
I know a lot.
presentation of it is awful?
No. It's very well made.
Oh.
The things that happen, both to John Benet Ramsey, who was a 6-year-old, I think, who was a beauty pageant kid who was murdered, and they never solved the case. It's basically what the documentary is about. The way that they treat the parents who were publicly assumed to have killed her, even though the documentary is certainly presenting things that would make me think that they definitely did not do it, is wild. Like, I've been watching this documentary angry at mankind, which is not really what you need. I'm not going to recommend it on that basis. I love a crime documentary in general, but like, man, they were doing like fake mock trials on TV where people were just making fun of this family who, if they didn't do it, have just lost their daughter in a horrific way.
Oh, dude, it was similar.
brutal.
So in the UK, there was this little girl called Madeleine McCann.
I watched Maddie McCann once too.
Sure.
And like she went missing. Well, she was presumed kidnapped on holiday. Her parents,
Barcelona or something, is it? Where was it?
Yeah.
Something like that.
somewhere like that. But like her parents like left the kids alone at night to go to a restaurant or something. Came back and Maddie's missing, and like similar thing, just absolutely vilified in the
Blew out of
public for years, and
control,
still now, yeah.
It's always
And
the thing
just-
I find the most interesting in like those crime documentaries more recently is like the media and culture analysis around it, where you just see like the worst of media and the worst of like humanity sometimes. It's
Totally. The Jean Benet Ramsey one as well, and like a lot of these do, but it's got some terrible police fuck-ups. Like, well documented, terrible, terrible mistakes. There was one particular officer who was very convinced that the mother did it, and his whole thing was that Patsy did it because Jean Benet wet the bed and she was mad, even though there are crime scene photos of her bed where she's clearly been pulled out of it and there's no stain, it's not wet. But he ran with that for years. He wrote a book about it while he was actively a police officer, making money off of all of his claims that, like, some of which are really easily disproven. Like, it is an infuriating watch, like deeply upsetting, but very, very, very well made. If you want to like ruin your day, go ahead.
Yeah.
well, on a positive
On
note,
that breezy note.
Yeah, what
Yeah,
isn't
sorry about
an
that.
infuriating watch is the Friends Per Second podcast. So be sure to like and rate it on your favorite platform. Thank you for listening. Before we do go, Alanah, where can people find you, especially for the things you might announce?
Yeah, cool stuff coming in the next few weeks. I am at Charalanazard. You won't be able to spell it. It's fine on everything.
Perfect. All right, everybody
See you
else,
never.
you guys know where we are.
We're here.
We are. Yeah, we're on
Blue
what's
Sky.
the- Blue Sky. Also, friendspersecond.substack.com. If you want to hit us up there, we would appreciate that. But I think that's it. Any last words, anybody?
See you in LA, babies.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, is next episode in LA?
Yeah.
Let's have a
Yeah.
look, hang on.
Yeah.
It is.
Next episode is a live show in LA. Let's just put it this way. We have a very special guest lined up.
Yes.
We are very excited about it. We think you will be too. So do tune in for that.
Stay
Should be
tuned.
a great show.
Yeah, we'll see you at the Game Awards. Tie your shoes and go to bed.